Chapter 71. One wish you are listening at novelfull.audio. Renervate. Since his business with Tonks was done, Axel renervated her and removed her bindings. But he didn't anticipate her reaction. As soon as she woke up, the first thing she did was to punch him in the face. Whoosh, and that punch. It turned out to be strong enough to cave his face in. Fortunately, Axel somehow managed to deflect it in time. "What the hell are you doing?" he demanded as he glared at Tonks, his knife already at her throat. Axel was really a bit scared this time. He didn't know if he could have avoided that punch without the training/beating in hand to hand that he had received from Akiko. And what was with that power? He thought only he was supposed to have super strength here. Tonks seemed to have come to her senses by now. "Holy Morgana, I'm so sorry," she exclaimed frantically as she checked his face where the punch had barely grazed him. And Axel couldn't help but notice that the skin of the hand she had hit him with had been darkened and hardened, in case the insane power alone wasn't enough to destroy her victims. If that punch had connected, he would have been in trouble. Tonks rubbed her temples. "I'm so sorry, I really didn't mean to hurt you. It's just..." Tonks was quite surprised by the situation herself. Her head was throbbing with pain and she was feeling very disoriented. Just now, when she had woken up in this darkness with her thoughts in a jumbled mess, not recalling how she was here, she had lashed out after suddenly seeing someone so close. Only after a few seconds she recalled what had happened and how she had ended up here. Axel realized that her reaction just now must have been due to his forceful intrusion into her mind. He had managed to avoid detection using the system's method, but his proficiency was still low. Anyways, he can't blame the girl for this. Looking at Tonks, who looked to be on the verge of figuring out that she had been mined. Raped, Axel quickly got up. "I'll go now. Don't follow me anymore." Before Tonks could respond, Axel had already left the place. Tonight, he hadn't caught the criminal, but he did get some important information. Atlantis. He recalled what he already knew about the place. Unsurprisingly, everything he knew was taught by Professor Gorski, their previous history teacher. Now it makes sense why he'd know about it. Gorski was a member of the organization, and the organization turned out to be from Atlantis. Of course he'll know about Atlantis. Too bad, that source is no longer available. It would seem Axel will have to find out about it some other way. The next day, Akiko was once again found training at his spot. "Are you ready?" she asked, getting into position for another sparring session. She looked determined to beat him again. "Can't you teach me ninjutsu today?" asked Axel with a sigh. Akiko shook her head. "No ninjutsu until you've mastered hand to hand, she said seriously. "Whatever." Axel could only shrug as he got into position. Tilting her head slightly, Akiko looked at Axel like she was looking at a rare animal. "You're ready for the pain." Yesterday, after getting used to his surprises, she had beaten him quite badly. And today was probably going to be the same. This was her grandfather's method of making her back down whenever she forced him to teach her something risky. Had her resolution been weak and lacking, she would have quit very easily. So, she thought that it would be easy to make Axel quit. On the other hand, Axel was a bit confused by her question. Pain. Was yesterday's training supposed to be painful? That was pain. In comparison to the cruciatus, it was nothing but a massage. "I don't really care about the pain. Let's begin," he replied to Akiko as he got into position. He was eager to learn ninjutsu, but he didn't mind mastering close combat first. After all, it did save his face from being bashed in last night, didn't it? But Akiko, who didn't know all this, looked skeptical. She didn't believe he wouldn't give up if she made it more difficult. "Alright, let's begin." And begin they did, fighting with a ferocity that would leave any onlookers shocked. Axel was now reaping the benefits of all the hardships he had suffered in maintaining such a tasteless but expensive diet and the grueling training he had been doing throughout the year. With his body at the peak of human endeavor, he can now easily keep up with someone like Akiko, who has been receiving the best guidance since early childhood. Combined with his insane pain tolerance, he was an unstoppable force in a sparring session. They only stopped when Akiko was too tired to continue. Panting for breath, she looked at Axel, who still hadn't shown any signs of backing out. When her grandfather had used this trick on her to make her give up, she had only persisted because her drive had been very strong. She wanted revenge against the organization who had killed her parents. But, she couldn't understand why the boy in front of won't quit. Why? Why won't you give up? She asked in between her panting. Axel, who was using heal on his wounds, couldn't be bothered to answer, just cause. He replied, a bit short for breath himself. Fine, muttered Akiko as she left the clearing in a huff. He'll give up soon enough. She'll have to make him. She has no time to train someone else when her goal is to destroy the Kraken. After coming out of the clearing, Axel went to the training ground where all the students had gathered. But this time, he didn't go to Daphne. He first looked for Martina. To find out about Atlantis, the first person he could think of within his reach was her. Axel knew if anyone would know about a mysterious magical place, submerged underwater, with outside entry banned, it would be this curious but powerful geek. Now that he has a lead on the organization, he was very eager to capitalize on it. He didn't even mind the attention he'd draw to himself talking to her in public like this. Axel found Martina easily enough, you just had to follow the crowd. Wearing a purple workout outfit, she was doing some light stretching, unknowingly drawing the eyes of half of Hogwarts' male population towards her. Around her were a group of Ravenclaw girls, fiercely guarding her like a national treasure. When they saw Axel, they all glared at him, but no one stopped him since everyone knew about them being close. But, that didn't stop them from sending threatening and warning looks his way as he approached her. Martina. Axel called out, making her stop. Martina was doing some warm-up before the physical training starts. After witnessing first-hand the effectiveness of high athletic ability during Axel's fight with the basilisk, Martina had decided to take this class seriously. Hearing Axel's voice, she was pleasantly surprised. Axel. Yeah, I need your help. Martina was actually glad to hear that. She had yet to think about how to repay him for his help in the Chamber of Secrets. So, she quickly sent the ravens away for some privacy. So, what did you want my help for? Axel sighed. It's about Atlantis. What can you tell me about it? Atlantis. Why do you want to know about it all of a sudden? Asked Martina in surprise. Axel shrugged, do you know or not? Martina sighed regretfully, actually, I've already tried researching about it multiple times before. I'm quite curious about their civilization. But, I haven't been able to find out much. What are you guys talking about? At this moment, someone interrupted their conversation. Coming to stand by Axel's side. It was Daphne, who couldn't help herself from coming over after seeing so many students already pointing at Axel and Martina and manufacturing new sets of rumors. Martina nodded at Daphne, Eris Greengrass. It's a pleasure as always. Axel was just asking about something important to tell. Whenever she was in front of outsiders, she would revert to her pure-blood princess mode which had learned from her mom. But Daphne, who was already misunderstanding Martina's intentions, thought that Martina was showing off her closeness to Axel to her. Flexing in front of me. Putting on a surprised and apologetic look, she said, oh, am I interrupting something important? Actually, Axel had asked me to skip classes today since he was going to give me some private training. I came here wanting to discuss that. Even though Daphne was trying to flex in a different context, her words did erupt quite a lot of jealousy in Martina. Private training from Axel. This was the same person who had killed a Lethifold and a basilisk. Of course she also wanted private lessons from him. But, she wasn't thick-skinned enough to ask about joining them. Axel shook his head, not today. I haven't found the right place to train yet. The things he was going to teach Daphne were rather secretive. Not only does it have to be private since he's going to teach her occlumency, but it also has to be spacious for the physical training. And the clearing was no longer an option. So, he planned on finding such a place today. Martina, who was feeling regretful after not being able to help Axel, perked up after hearing him. You need a place to train. Yeah. Martina smiled, you don't need to worry about that anymore. I happen to know just the right place, she said, putting a privacy charm around them. I still think she made a fool out of us, voiced Daphne, looking at the wall across from a tapestry of a man attempting to train some trolls for the ballet. Axel rolled his eyes, you can't even give her the benefit of doubt. And here I thought I was the one with trust issues. Daphne clicked her tongue, I'm not saying I can't trust her. I just can't help but wonder, if there really was a place as wonderful as the one she described, why would she so easily reveal it to us? Is she stupid or what? Axel shook his head, she's not stupid. She could have told me about such a place last year as well, but she didn't. She did it this time because she owes me. At least she thinks she owes him. But Axel wouldn't reject it if he was being offered a good place to train. Daphne narrowed her eyes, she owes you as well. What did you do for her? Nothing much, I just saved her from a scary monster once. Well, don't tell me if you don't want to, huffed Daphne, thinking that he was being sarcastic. Axel shrugged. He tried. It's not his fault if she didn't believe it. So, we just have to pace back and forth while imagining the kind of place I want, right? He asked, turning his attention back to the door. Daphne nodded, looking excited as well. After such a long time, it's going to be just her and Axel. She wondered if it could be called a date. She imagined a romantic place, where Axel would personally train her. They'd slowly grow closer, and then, it's here. Unfortunately, Daphne snapped out of her fantasy when a door appeared out of nowhere and Axel unceremoniously pushed it open. Inside was not the romantic place she had been imagining. But a spacious room with lots of training dummies, weights, and other training equipment. This place. She began. It's perfect, said Axel, stepping in as he looked around. It actually worked. Perfect wasn't the word Daphne had in her mind for this place, but nevertheless, she still followed Axel into the room as the door closed behind them. So, what are you going to teach me? Asked Daphne, looking at Axel with anticipation. Axel frowned. Do 10 laps of this place first. Daphne couldn't understand the situation, but unable to deny him, she still did what he had asked. Ha. Done. This room was quite big. Big enough that 10 laps was enough to make her weary. Do 15 push-ups now. Daphne wanted to say something, but in the end, she still got down on all fours as she began to do push-ups. 1, 2, 15, ha. 20 sit-ups now. What? 7, ha, 8. Ha. Can I stop now? Axel watched her indifferently with his hands folded. Do you want to give up already? No. It's just. Just what? You expected me to teach you something good. You didn't expect it to be difficult, did you? She did expect it to be quite a bit different. Or more like, she was just too excited by the prospect of him training her that she didn't think much about this. I won't lie. I do have a lot to teach you, admitted Axel. And those things are quite unique as well. Not this bullshit I'm having you do right now. Daphne looked up at him from the ground. She really couldn't understand what was going on, then, why? She asked, looking to be on the verge of tears. Why make her go through this for no reason? Was he just having fun in making her suffer? Because, I want to be sure that you're determined. I will only teach if you are serious about this. This is not a picnic, Daphne, replied Axel coldly. You always say that I don't trust you with my secrets, don't you? Well, honestly, you're too weak and immature for me to tell you anything. That hurt. But Daphne had no words to deny him. She had always been trying hard to catch up to him, but no matter how hard she tried, the gap between them only seemed to be increasing over time. It has now come to the point that she can no longer tell just how strong he actually is. So, Axel was right. He's actually teaching her, giving her a chance to be able to stand beside him in the future, and here she is, only thinking about useless stuff. She just wanted to punch her earlier self now. She wondered if he's regretting teach her now. Damn it. Looking at the dispirited Daphne, Axel wondered if he had said too much. Was I too harsh just now? He wondered, misunderstanding her regretful look as signs of her giving up. Actually, him offering to train Daphne, it wasn't entirely for her benefit. It was for his own selfishness as well. He wanted her to be strong, so that she doesn't randomly gets done in by one of his enemies in the future. He wanted her to have a good occlumency defense, so that he can tell her stuff without having to lie and keep secrets for even the smallest of things. So, he didn't actually want her to quit. He wanted her to train seriously. So, very reluctantly, he decided to make a concession. Oi! From her collapsed position on the ground, Daphne looked up at Axel with her eyes glistening, seemingly on the verge of tears. She was afraid that Axel wouldn't train her now. Though. What came out of Axel's mouth was completely different from what she was expecting. One wish. What? If you actually succeeded in training to the level I deem passable, I will fulfill your one wish within reason. Daphne. AN Power Stones. Thanks for support. Chapter 72. Common Ground. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Around a month passed since Hogwarts' exchange program with Mahudakoro had begun. And during this time, the happenings of the castle were the main focus of the wizarding communities in many parts of the world. People were curious to see what results the fusion of these completely different schools would bring. And the various magical media throughout the world also realized this. That's why, you could see reporters anywhere around the castle these days, searching for content. In these times, newspapers weren't the only means of information. Information could also be spread by magi.mirrors, used by many wizarding communities all over the world. And since everyone had magi.mirrors, the equivalent of a phone, of course they also had televisions at home, which showed wizarding media and shows. With the advancement of Wizarding Britain, other countries in the ICW had also made some advancement under Britain's lead, at least in the media sector. By now, instead of radios and newspapers, most of the wizarding homes had switched to televisions which work with magic. Since the reporters from various countries were sent to the school, Hogwarts was currently trending on various platforms throughout the world. And the exchange program was just a small part of the reason why this was the case. In actuality, Hogwarts is already a land of content as it is. The castle is huge, with no shortage of mysteries and attractions. The moving staircases, the secret passages, the Whomping Willow, the beautiful lake with the giant squid, the boundless forbidden forest, and the various attractions in Hogsmeade. There is no shortage of interesting things here. Once the media came for the exchange program, these attractions were also inevitably featured in those channels, making everything more interesting. And during this time, a certain video of the Gryffindor Quidditch team's practice was also uploaded. It featured Rose Potter, the girl who lived, dodging the bludgers and catching the snitch in a brilliant spiral dive at breakneck speed. The video blew up, gaining a lot of traction, since the level of skill shown in it was comparable to the professional athletes, and it was done by a second-year girl. And when they came to know that this was the famous girl who lived, there was no way it wasn't going to get viral. The footage got a lot of views and was reposted several times on different platforms, being watched by the Quidditch fans and other audience all around the world. Some Quidditch stars even commented on it, praising the girl's skills at her age. However, the most shocking thing was when talk of the Rose Potter getting an offer from Montrose Magpies began circulating. Montrose Magpies is currently rated best team in the Major Quidditch League, the Premier League, with most of its star players being from England and Ireland's national Quidditch teams. And getting selected for such a team is like the ultimate goal for all Quidditch players. The salary is very high, and you get to play with the best players under the best guidance. So, when the talks of Rose Potter being a part of such a team began to be raised, the school was, no doubt, in an uproar. Being able to be qualified for such a team already at her age, she was guaranteed a successful Quidditch career even if she didn't pass the trial now. Swoosh, swoosh, bomb. Ha. And while all that was going on at Hogwarts, completely uninvolved with all activities, Axel and Akiko were exchanging blows in their clearing in the Forbidden Forest, both moving at blurring speeds. They had been doing this every morning for days. But, there was a drastic shift in the situation compared to how it was when they started. When they had started, it was like a one-sided beating, since both were using pure hand-to-hand combat skills. And in that area, Akiko, who had been trained since childhood, had an overwhelming advantage. But now, in just a few weeks, Axel had bridged the gap to the point that he was now fighting Akiko without taking even a single hit. "You ready to give up yet?" asked Axel, easily blocking yet another series of kicks from Akiko. Ha! Akiko's reply was yet another combo, trying to overwhelm him with her speed. How did he improve so fast? She questioned in her mind. They weren't meeting every day these days since both of them had their own training to do, but Axel improved drastically each time they fought. In the beginning, Akiko had thought that Axel would give up on training after a few days of beating and she'd be able to focus on her own goals. But at this point, she can barely land a hit on him anymore. She can only imagine how he must have trained to improve so fast. "Why do you try so hard?" she demanded in between her attacks. She had always thought that she was at least the most hard-working, if not the most talented warrior in existence. She had to be, if she was going to face the odds that she needed to overcome in order to take her revenge. But then she meets Axel, the person who can beat her in both talent and hard work. She can tell just by the muscle strains visible on his exposed skin, that this guy is training half to death daily, and his body must be constantly in a lot of pain. "When will you answer? Why do you work so hard? How are you so strong? And, why the hell do you keep hiding despite having all this power?" she demanded, her frustration showing in her usually impassive face. The reason she was so affronted by it wasn't because of something as petty as jealousy. No, it was because his existence proved that she hadn't tried hard enough. That her drive for power and avenging her parents wasn't strong enough. That's why she has been wanting to know, how and why he is what is today and why he still continues to strive for more. "What's with this girl?" wondered Axel. This wasn't the first time she was asking him these questions. She had already asked this to him a lot of times, but he didn't know that it was so important for her to know about it. Otherwise, he would have told her a little about it since they're not stranger anymore. Looking back, they have been sparring every few days, sometimes even using magic. And by now, he knows enough about her character to know that she isn't a bad person. But, she hasn't told him anything about herself, neither has she taught him the ninjutsus yet. So, why should he bother answering? "What about you then?" he asked. "Why do you work so hard? Even going so far as to train in forbidden arts for it? And why are you not teaching me even after so many days of signing the contract?" asked Axel right back. He hadn't been forcing her using the contract yet since it would be better if she taught him willingly. Akiko gritted her teeth. The contract. That had only happened because Axel had seen her practicing forbidden arts. She didn't like the fact that she was being blackmailed into teaching him, and it annoyed her every time he brought it up. "You'd have to beat me first for that," she said, making a few hand seals as her magic flared. Matsushima secret style. Fists of fury, she stopped holding back and decided to use the secret hand-to-hand combat techniques of the Matsushima clan, making her fists burn with magic. Axel shrugged. "If that's the case," he murmured, changing his stance, "then so be it." As soon as he shifted his stance, the atmosphere around him changed. Arcane martial arts. 30%, he hadn't used this against her yet. Akiko's speed and strength increased suddenly as Axel found himself facing unavoidable punches, even one of which could seriously injure him. Arcane martial arts. Softening palms, but, in face of such punches, his hands glowed with a gentle light and the enormous force behind Akiko's fists seemed to get nullified. Well, that was dangerous, thought Axel, still feeling the remnants of the enormous destructive might of the punches even after the using softening palms. He dared not stretch this fight longer. Magic hands, his dexterity, which was already terrific, reached a godly level, and he caught her fists one after another. He had been holding back since he had wanted her to teach him everything on her own initiative. And no one would truly want to teach someone who was already better than them. But, I had been wrong, he thought, ignoring her surprised reaction as his hands gripped her fist. If he wants to learn from her, he has to make her submit first. Take this. Axel jumped as his legs wrapped around her neck, and he flipped her to the ground with her hands pinned on either side of her. Bam. Cough. The impact knocked the breath out of Akiko's lungs as she found herself tackled by the same trick she had used on him on the very first day. Except, she couldn't use her hands to counter-attack like Axel had when this was used on him. So, is this considered a defeat? Asked Axel. Akiko struggled to free herself as she coughed. Cough cough. Yeah, guess I lost, she said in the end in defeat. Turns out, he had been holding back again. Just out of consideration. Though she didn't understand how he was able to do the things he did, but Akiko had no choice but to accept it. She had lost. She was incredibly frustrated. As a genius, it's very difficult to accept someone else being better. But, a promise is a promise. Thus, as Axel let her go, she laid on the ground and looked at the morning sky. Well, since I already agreed, I'll tell you about myself then. My drive for power and the reason why I go as far as breaking rules. She said with a sigh. What is it? Revenge, replied Akiko with fire burning in her eyes. Axel frowned. Revenge. For what? My parents. They went on a mission very far away, they could never return. I want to take revenge on their killers, she said as her face clouded over. I see, said Axel. Actually, he couldn't see. He didn't take Akiko for a girl who'd be so emotionally driven when she's usually like a cold machine. And, revenge for parents. He couldn't understand the motivation behind that. As far as he could remember, his parents had left him at an orphanage and he didn't even know them. So, he didn't really feel the need to avenge them. Anyways, go on the mission my parents have gone on, to need to be the elite of the elite. And the fatality rate is extremely high. So, only the best of the best are chosen for this mission. That's why I've been training so hard. So, that I can go and destroy those who killed my parents. Axel couldn't understand it. You must have really loved your parents, huh? Akiko covered her face to hide her emotions. Of course. Who doesn't love their parents? They were usually busy with their work but they always used to make time for me. Must have been nice. Yeah, it was. But that's all about me. Now it's your turn, she said, sitting up. You still haven't answered any of my questions. Why are you so strong? Why still train so hard every day? And, why does no one here know anything about your strength? Axel pondered over it. Why he's so strong today? It's due to a variety of reasons. And talent is not the only factor that has contributed to it. The main factor would have to be his mindset. It is something that has been forged after a series of unfortunate incidents. Due to his extraordinary luck, he has somehow already experienced some of the worst things that can happen to you when you're trying to survive on the streets. It made him tenacious and extremely selfish. It taught him the value of his own life, his freedom, his happiness, and the value of power. It has made him obsessed to obtain and retain these things at all costs. And then, he was tortured horrifically with the worst torture spell ever, almost killing him. By that time, he wanted to make it so that such a situation can never happen to him again. But then, he came to know that the world was going to be taken over by an extremely powerful madman, and he had been crippled. That made him realize the importance of what he already had and how much of an idiot he was not to use it to its full extent. So, from that day onwards, his hard work reached a new high. It's not something you do unless you're absolutely desperate. And he did that for a whole year, while getting the best guidance from the system. And this is how he is as he is today. He wasn't born an absolute genius. In fact, his talent could be considered worse than monsters like Akiko and Martina. But, he has slowly and gradually improved in all aspects, from his body to his mind, so that he is superior to Akiko today. Though, he can't tell all this to Akiko, can he? That's why he's never answered her questions until now. But, he has a feeling that she wouldn't actually start teaching him seriously until he gives her an answer. So, Axel told her what he could. Well, I'm an orphan as well, though I never knew my parents or any living relative for that matter. I've had to live through some difficult situations and went through some tough Tamiya. That has toughened me up. Akiko nodded. So, that's how you got the scars. I'd always been curious, she said, looking at the scars on his face. Axel nodded dismissively as he unconsciously ran a finger over his scars. They were both very light, one on his cheek and one across his left eye. He had lost count of the number of times people had asked him about the scars on his face. Some idiotic students have even tried to copy his scars when they heard girls saying it looks cool. Anyways, continued Axel, moving on the topic. Right now, the reason I'm still training so hard is because my life's in danger. Akiko blinked her eyes when she heard that. What kind of danger? Well, there's this organization that was after my father. Now it's after me. That's also the reason why I'm keeping a low profile these days. Akiko nodded in understanding. It would make sense to keep a low profile if an organization is after his life. But then something else didn't add up. But if you're trying to keep a low profile, why did you sign up for the Slytherin Quidditch team? For being a seeker, you need to have dexterity, balance, and sharp eyes. And, she somehow had this ominous feeling just thinking about Axel playing as a seeker. Axel looked at her in surprise. Even you know about me being the Slytherin seeker, huh? Rose wouldn't stop talking about it, said Akiko with a roll of her eyes. Oh, Axel had totally forgotten that Akiko was actually friends with Rose. How are you even friends with her anyways? You two are totally different. Akiko shrugged. You might already know it, but she has a very powerful darkness affinity. I had noticed right away. Anyways, what are you going to do in Quidditch? Keep a low profile. Axel just smirked. You'll see. Akiko didn't think Axel would be able to keep his low profile for long. But, now that she thought about it, why would this person even need to hide? Which organization is powerful enough to even threaten someone like him? By the way, what's the name of the organization that's after you? Somehow, only one name came to her. Axel shrugged. I don't really know. All I know is, it's in Atlantis. Akiko thought she didn't hear it right. What did you say? Netherworld. Lily Potter and Issatra, the Queen of Dark Elves, were currently in a room with two large mirrors. You think it'll work? asked Isitra. Lily fiddled with the mirrors, there's no reason it shouldn't. Besides, this is important. Isitra agreed. What they were trying to do was indeed important. Currently, living underwater, they were quite cut off from the activities of their enemy, and they didn't have any allies. They were trying to communicate with the other races in the netherworld. To do that, they had sent two-way mirrors to other races. And right now, the mirrors had been delivered, along with the message. It was time to communicate. Which races have we successfully delivered the mirror to yet? Asked Isitra. The vampires and the lichens. It's those two at the same time. Isitra sighed, realizing the headache this was going to bring. Ready? Asked Lily as she held up her wand. I'm going to start the connection in 3, 2, 1. It's on. The mirrors blurred and then two people's faces appeared. An appearance of new characters. The Netherworld side will continue on the side and it'll become relevant in Volume 3. Hit me with power stones. A bet with Rose next. Akiko's proposal and the incoming danger, and also those who are interested, come to my Patreon in the new month. Patreon. com/snollygoster, remove spaces, thanks for support. Chapter 73. I bet you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 73. What did you say? Akiko couldn't help but ask. Because, the organization that could threaten someone like Axel, and it's from Atlantis, there was only one that fit the bill. Kraken. Axel's brows furrowed at her surprised reaction. I said, it's in Atlantis. You wouldn't happen to know anything about it, would you? So, she didn't hear it wrong. It is Kraken. The very same organization that she wants to destroy. She so much wanted to nod her right now, and tell him that yes, she did know about it. But alas, she had no choice in the matter. Akiko paused in her reply. I was just surprised, she lied with a heavy heart. She was feeling incredibly conflicted right now. The information about Atlantis and the organization is even more restricted than the forbidden jutsus. She had only obtained it after signing an advanced secrecy seals. She couldn't even reveal the information by mistake. So, no matter how much she wanted to tell Axel, she couldn't say anything. But, since she knew that the organization was their common enemy, she could help him out in a lot of other ways. For example, by giving him the best training she could. Previously, she had been hesitant to share the knowledge with him, especially since she was being blackmailed into it. But now, things were different. The Kraken. This organization was so dangerous that she is unable to deal with it even with it by herself. But, if it's him. At only 12, Axel is already so dangerous. If trained properly, they would have a Kraken. Doomsday machine at hand. Axel. What? Axel was a bit disappointed by the fact that she didn't know anything about the organization, but it's not like he expected her to know anything anyway. The girl can't see anything past her revenge. Akiko looked Axel dead in the eyes. Let's begin your training, she said seriously. Tomorrow morning, be here at the same time. A grin came on Axel's face. Now we're talking. Later that morning, Axel sat at the Slytherin table eating his breakfast. Sitting beside him was, surprisingly, Daphne, surprising because this was the Slytherin table. It had always been an unspoken rule for the students to always sit at their own house table. But, after the start of their exchange program, with the Neens sitting with them, some of the students had started to sit at the other house tables, claiming they did not have enough space. There was some degree of resistance from professors like McGonagall, but Dumbledore, the ever-eccentric man he was, instead approved of it, saying it promoted unity between houses. After that, the students had kind of started to sit wherever they liked. So, this is why Luna was currently sitting with Martina at the Ravenclaw table and Daphne was currently sitting beside Axel. Can't I eat something more edible? She asked, looking down at the plate of boiled ingredients that was supposed to be her breakfast. Driven by Axel's promise of fulfilling her one wish, Daphne had been training hard under Axel's instructions. And of course, diet was an important part of her training as well, which was going to start from today. But, this food, it's really difficult to eat for her. As a pure-blood heiress, she was used to the delicious food carefully cooked by the house elves. Even when her father restricted her food intake, whatever she ate was still delicious. So, it was a bit difficult for her to eat this boiled, unprocessed food. Axel shook his head. No, it's important to eat if you want the benefits. Do you have a problem with it? Of course I do. This shit tastes absolutely revolting. How the fuck have you been eating this kind of stuff all this while? She demanded, lowering her voice so that only he could hear her, so as to keep her pure-blood lady image in front of others. She had thought that the physical training was the worst part, but when she had first tried some of the food that Axel had been eating for more than a year, that was when Daphne truly began to realize the extent of hell Axel had been living for the past year. No wonder he always used to be so grumpy. He had to work so hard, maintain that diet, and also deal with all the pain his almost crippled body was causing him at that time. Axel frowned. Even if it doesn't taste well, it's still expensive and nutritious food, right? Daphne nodded hesitantly, but that doesn't mean you can eat it like this. I can't understand how can you not throw up after eating this? She said, gingerly moving the ingredients in her plate around with her fork. Daphne didn't know why, but Axel looked incensed after listening to her words. That's right. You won't understand it unless you have struggled to even get something to eat, unless you felt happy to even be able to eat a molded loaf of bread. I was being unreasonable. Daphne felt like an absolutely spoiled, insensitive and immature brat right now. But more than that, she felt her heart aching for Axel. She knew that he had had a rough childhood, but since he had always been rather closed off about this topic, she didn't know it was to the extent that he didn't even have enough food to eat. Oh, how she truly wished she had met him earlier. She wished she could have helped him when he was hungry, she wished she could have helped him when he got those scars, she wished she could have helped him when he was getting tortured to the point of being crippled. And most importantly, she wished she could have been there when he was getting these emotional scars that have yet to heal. But, I'm here now, aren't I, she thought. She was here now, and things were getting better. Today he shared another detail of his past with her. Isn't this progress? And she would be damned if she were to fuck it up now. My wish, this for you. She thought, grabbing a forkful of ingredients. Then, glancing at Axel, she slowly put it in her mouth. Meanwhile, sitting on the other side of the great hall, at the Gryffindor table, Rose Potter, the girl who played, was also quite exhilarated. Sitting at the great hall with her group of friends, she relished the attention she was getting as everyone pointed to her and talked about her instead of finding it uncomfortable like she usually does. She had done it. She was finally being recognized for something she had achieved herself instead of the whole girl who lived thing. Because, all those girl who lived rumors. They are all bullshit. Rose recalled the conversation she had had with Dumbledore at the end of last term. Waking up in the hospital wing, she had panicked as soon as the events of the previous night had come crashing down on her. She had so many questions. What happened? How was Voldemort still alive? Why did he say he died because of her mother? Why did she suddenly pass out when Voldemort had her? And more importantly, what did he mean when he said he'll kill her and her mother? Isn't her mother already dead? But thankfully, Albus Dumbledore himself was there when she woke up, to answer all her questions. At first, she was quite surprised and reticent, seeing Dumbledore in the flesh right after waking up. But the old man had calmed her down and given her some answers. Turns out, Voldemort never truly died that Halloween night, and whatever had happened, she certainly didn't play any part in it. It would seem that her mother had used a very obscure ritual, something which even Dumbledore didn't know of, to give her some very powerful protection. And was the reason why she was able to overcome the killing curse. And that's why she disliked it even more whenever someone called her the girl who lived. Her mother, while praised by everyone who knew her personally as the brightest witch of her time, never got any credit despite everything she had done. Isn't this great? We're now allowed to sit at whichever table we like, said Susan, who was also sitting with her at the Gryffindor table. I'd rather we sat at our own table, said Hannah to Susan, feeling uncomfortable with all the attention Rose was attracting their way. Rose rolled her eyes. Come on, Hannah. It's so rare for all of us to be able to sit and talk like this. Classes have been so busy, she said, getting nods from the table. Well, not everyone, said Neville, looking pointedly at the Slytherin table where Daphne had chosen to sit. It's like she's no longer our friend at all. Looking at Daphne, Rose's face darkened. This was the same friend who had gone through life and death with her at the third-floor corridor last year. The same friend whom she has known for years. But, ever since Rose's and Neville's conflict with Axel on the train, Daphne has distanced herself from this group. And of course, she knows why. And now she's always skipping classes as well. She's gone as well. It's what he does. Bewitching witches, she said, glaring at Axel. No, she can't let him take away Daphne as well. Hermione, who was also sitting with them, looked surprised. Does he really do that? She asked, realizing why Martina paid so much attention to him. Rose nodded. Both of her aunts, Daphne, Martina Valentino, Patricia Afonso, all seemed to have been bewitched by him. Maybe, he bewitched me as well, said Susan, breaking the heavy atmosphere. You are bewitched by every handsome boy, said Hannah as everyone laughed. Their group finished their breakfast after that. But as they were exiting, the two groups happened to meet at the door. Seeing the two talking among themselves and completely ignoring them, Rose couldn't take it anymore. Daphne, she called, attracting the blonde girl's attention. What is it? Asked Daphne, looking impatient. Why have you been skipping classes? Daphne shrugged, just 'cause. Do you have anything else to say? Rose was annoyed. It's because of him, right? What has he done to you? You used to never miss classes. Axel frowned. They were beginning to attract a crowd here. What do you want? He asked, stepping forward, getting away from Daphne, so as to avoid getting attention on the two of them. Rose glared at Axel. What I want? I want you to stop bewitching witches all around. She shot back, stepping up as well. Axel was a bit annoyed. He knew that he couldn't clear up whatever misunderstanding this girl had of him even if he tried. And he was tired of her annoying him all the time. Fine, let's make a bet. The match is coming. The loser will do whatever the winner asks. Fine. Rose hesitated for a moment before agreeing. She had been training very hard. She was now at a level where even pro players were praising her. Of course she can now easily beat Axel. And that's how the biggest bet in Hogwarts was made. Meanwhile, in Netherworld, continuing, in the room where Issachar and Lily were present with two images appeared in the mirrors. Even though they were physically present, just their virtual image was enough to tell that these were not ordinary individuals. Oh, if it isn't the fallen queen, said one of the two individuals, looking at the dark elf queen as he began to chuckle in a deep, hoarse voice. The appearance of this person was different from humans. He had a large and buffed stature, his teeth were sharp, his yellow irises were bigger than human with black pupils, and his face had a beard that resembled wolf fur. He was the king of lichens, Fenisulfur. Fenisulfur, you shouldn't be mocking others when you have become a lapdog of an outsider yourself, came a low seductive whisper from the other mirror. The mirrors were placed in a way that they could see the other mirror as well as Issachar, who was sitting on her throne. A low growl escaped Fenisulfur's mouth as he glared at the other mirror. I'm no one's lapdog. I'm his ally. And why is She here? He growled, looking back at the dark elf queen. I would like to ask you the same, Isitra, asked the person in the other mirror, flicking her white hair back. This was, of course, the vampire queen. Celeste. She was an ageless beauty, with pale skin and red eyes. Whenever she smiled, two sharp canines could be seen in between her red lips. Isitra sighed. She was very well aware of the unending feuds between lycans and vampires. The two races were like fire and water, always conflicting. They were already at war even when Voldemort started his takeover. But, seeing them still at odds even to this moment made her disappointed. I had thought that getting your race conquered by an outsider would have at least made you change, even by a little. But you two haven't changed, she said with some frustration. But her words ended up offending the other two rulers. The vampires have not been conquered. We've simply changed our allies, proclaimed Celeste. That's right. The lycans haven't lost as well. Matter of fact, things are better now than they were in your reign. At least we don't have to lose our people to monsters all the time. Sigh. Things were not going as she had expected. It looks like these two don't even want to rebel. But, she can't really blame them. Netherworld is not really an easy world to live in. There are various monsters living in the wild. And these monsters constantly attack all the kingdoms in hordes. And Voldemort had somehow allied/convinced/enslaved these monsters to march under him. Now when he offers the rulers of the various kingdoms, be allied with me, the monsters won't attack you anymore, or be destroyed, the choice is of course obvious. At this moment, Lily, who had been silent until now, spoke up, bullshit. 3x, you said something. Asked Fenisulf, glaring at Lily. Lily raised her head fearlessly, yes I did. If you really think you're his ally, that's bullshit. That person only takes followers, slaves, pawns, pieces he'll sacrifice in a heartbeat. So, you are not his allies. How dare you? Snarked Fenisulf, crushing the armrest of his throne. On the other hand, the vampire queen was far more civilized. Who are you? She asked, studying Lily curiously. Her skin wasn't pale enough to be a vampire, neither did she have sharp teeth. Her ears were different from dark elves. This was, undoubtedly, a species she had never seen. Lily stepped forward. I am a human. Just like Voldemort. I am what you call, an otherworlder. And the reason I said, halt, interrupted the Lycan king. Do you take us for fools? You have a nose. Lily was honestly at a loss for words for a moment. An Lycan king did have a point. Anyways. Akiko's proposal and incoming danger next. Halloween I will be as peaceful as any other Halloween at Hogwarts, vote with POWERSTONES. The month is here. Read ahead and support me on Patreon. patreon.com/snollygoster. Chapter 74. Incoming Danger and Akiko's Proposal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 74, Netherworld, conversation continued. Halt, interrupted the Lycan king. Do you take us for fools? You have a nose. Lily was honestly at a loss for words for a moment. Voldemort, you noseless bastard, would it have killed you to upgrade your looks? Though Isitra wouldn't stay quiet as well. She speaks the truth. Lily Potter Nebraska Evans is indeed an otherworlder who arrived from the same rift as Voldemort himself. I can personally vouch for her. The vampire queen giggled, not all otherworlders have to look alike, Fenisulfur. I don't remember having furry ears, and neither do I have a tail. You, the Lycan king was about to respond, but Isitra interrupted him. Rulers. We have some important information to share. Could you leave your squabbling for later? She asked irately, making the two rulers actually stop talking. Turning to Lily, she said, continue. Lily nodded, so, I was saying Voldemort is just using you guys as his pawns. His real goal has always been to use you as sacrificial pieces. He doesn't care one bit about your lives. He's just trying to conquer you all by dividing you. Fenisulfur wasn't convinced. Look, girl. I will not say I'm happy with losing my race's freedom to an outsider. In fact, there are a hell lot of things about him that make me want to crush his head. But, we have also gotten some undeniable benefits after joining him. The monster's attacks have stopped, and these bloody vampires don't bother us anymore. Previously, before they were attacked by Voldemort's forces, the Lycans and vampires were in a war with each other. They had wasted so much manpower that they had difficulty even protecting themselves from the ever-present monster attacks. But after they had surrendered to Voldemort, there were no more monster attacks and the war had also stopped, letting them recover and heal their wounds. The vampires had been attacking you. Celeste smiled at Fenisulfur, but this time, her smile looked dangerous. Don't make us out to be the villains now. You Lycans are the ones who started this war in the first place. Fenisulfur also flared up. You bloody liar. Who was the one whose minions killed our brethren for no reason? I already said it, it was an accident. They didn't mean to do it. What a load of, guys. Lily Potter waved her hands in the air, appearing very weak in the presence of these powerhouses. That's what I've been talking about. None of you actually started it, it was Voldemort. She revealed, mystifying the two rulers. Lily took that opportunity to explain everything. Don't you see? Voldemort first sowed discord between your people. He was the one who killed the members of your races in the beginning. He made you all fight among yourselves, while he also increased the frequency of monster attacks. While the Lycans and vampires, two of the most powerful species, are locked in war, weakening each other, all the burden of handling the monster attacks falls on the Dark Elves, making them weak as well. Don't you guys see? You guys have been trapped in Voldemort's schemes long before he even revealed his existence. The Vampire Queen and the Lycan King both went silent, with different expressions on their faces. Celeste didn't seem surprised, only intrigued, while the Fenisulfur looked surprised. No matter what, these circumstances were too much in favor of Voldemort. And now that they thought about it, it all fit together. Is this true? Asked the Vampire Queen, looking serious for the first time. If it is, then how did he make the members of our races attack each other? I checked them personally. There were no signs of mind-altering magic on them. Lily sighed, the magic you guys use is quite different from the magic we use in our world. Of course you wouldn't find any traces. Did you know we could communicate like this? This is also something from our world. The Vampire Queen had no answer to that. This was indeed a very novel and convenient way of communication. And indeed, she couldn't find out what kind of magic was used to make this. The Lycan King also figured it out. Boom, that snake! He roared, banging his feet on the ground. If what the girl was saying was true, then that bastard had indeed gotten them good. They had been dancing to his tune all this time while as he overtook most of the netherworld. So many of them had died meaningless deaths while the bastard reaped all the benefits. This was so infuriating and humiliating at the same time that Fenisulfur couldn't control his outburst as his whole palace shook with his howl. Meanwhile, Celeste appeared much calmer in comparison, but her smile had gone and black veins were now visible on her pale white face, and her eyes had gone completely dark. She looked beautiful and terrifying at the same time. She had her doubts about this from the beginning when Voldemort had showed up, and she still had some doubts left, but it is almost certain now. Voldemort was the reason behind the deaths of so many of her brethren. Of course she was incensed. Calm down, Fenisulfur, Celeste. What's done is done. We can't change the past. But we can't let the bastard continue to rule us. That's why, we need to put our differences aside and join forces. Said Isitra. The Vampire Queen sighed, what can we even do now? We're under oath to him. Fenisulfur growled at that. At this moment, Lily raised her hand once again. There are ways around that. Our main priority right now is to gather our forces and monitor his movements. We want to know what he's planning. Fenisulfur shook his head, I don't know anything. Haven't heard from the bastard for months. Celeste on the other hand, appeared solemn, I've tried to send my spies to him. They haven't found what he's doing exactly, but one thing is for sure. He's up to something, and whatever it is, he has had moderate success already. Lily paled. This is exactly what she was fearing. Whatever Voldemort was up to, it could only be related to one person. Her daughter. Hogwarts, the day after making the bet with Rose, Akiko and Axel stood in the clearing in the early morning. Today, Akiko was going to teach him seriously for the first time and Axel was looking forward to it. So, we're finally coming to lightning ninjutsu? Asked Axel. Akiko nodded. We are. But there's a lot of other things I'm going to have to teach you as well, she said seriously. The organization was no joke. If they were going to take it down, she was going to have to teach Axel a lot more than just lightning ninjutsu. Axel nodded. So, are you going to teach me the real use, or like the ones you used on me? Akiko looked surprised for a moment, but then the corner of her lips lifted slightly. Both. Now we're talking, thought Axel. In their fights until now, Axel has been able to glean one thing for sure. Akiko is mostly specialized in killing. Meaning most of the techniques and jutsus she has learnt are meant for delivering a lethal blow to the opponent. So of course she mostly didn't use them on Axel. But Axel was still able to tell that she could do more than what she just did. Just take the jutsu he had witnessed her doing on the very first day for example, it had destroyed the whole tree trunk quite easily. And of course, Akiko knew more jutsus like that which she didn't use. It's like how wizards don't use spells like Unforgivables or Fiendfire in normal duels. And Axel can't have her hiding these types of ninjutsu. He knows that he has many enemies out there. First, there's the organization from Atlantis, and then there's Voldemort and his army. So, there's no way he would be satisfied with learning just the non-lethal and less destructive techniques she had shown him until now. That's why, he was satisfied when she said she'd teach him lethal ninjutsus well. Let's begin then, he said eagerly. Akiko nodded. I'm going to assume you don't know anything and start with the basics of ninjutsu. Ninjutsu consists of two components. Shape manipulation and nature manipulation. Through nature manipulation, you summon the nature of magic you need to use. Then you use shape manipulation to mold that magic into your desired ninjutsu. Axel was a bit confused, I thought you just had to do hand seals to cast a jutsu. Akiko shook her head. To cast a successful jutsu, simply doing the hand seals is not enough. You have to focus on the precise execution of nature and shape manipulation and hand seals to help you do that. Well, that makes sense, agreed Axel inwardly. If it was that easy then everyone would have learned to cast jutsus easily. Akiko continued, in a sense, nature and shape manipulation is even more important than hand seals. Because, if you perfectly grasp these two concepts, you will theoretically be able to cast jutsus without having to do any hand seals. Sounds good. Axel grinned as he imagined spamming lethal jutsus one after another. Akiko clicked her tongue, don't be so hopeful. If it was that easy, then no one in the world would have stood a chance against ninjas. The most that ninjas can do is to shorten the number of hand seals. But direct casting without no hand seals is almost considered impossible. Axel shrugged, one can always hope. Anyways, I can perfectly learn the hand seals in one go. So I just need to quickly learn the shape and nature and manipulation, right? He asked. With his perfect memory and dexterity, he could perfectly learn all the hand seals in one go. So the only thing actually preventing him from casting jutsus is this. But Akiko only shook her head, it's not something that can be learnt or taught instantly. I can only give you the key information and guide you through it, but you can only slowly learn jutsus through a lot of practice. Axel frowned. Why is that? Well, because it's a complicated process. You can't grasp the flow in one go without being able to see it yourself. Axel was just going to accept that fact, until he realized something. He smirked. Yeah, I understand. It must be quite difficult, for most people. Unless they can actually see the process, he thought in his head. Arcane eyes, let's begin then. He said, ready to observe the process. Akiko nodded. Let's start with the most basic one. Lighting release. Lightning bolt. It's a simple jutsu with which you can fire a bolt of lightning through the palm of your hand or through your fingers. The hand seals are bear, ox, tiger, monkey, dragon. She said, also showing the hand seals. When you do the bear hand seal, you have to imagine the lightning nature magic coming into your body. When you feel it, you have to make sure to pass it through the life gate. Life gate is. She began to describe the entire process, and Axel realized why jutsus were secrets that couldn't be copied just by learning the hand seals and why it was difficult to learn them. Well, this seems more difficult than magic, Axel commented after she was done. Akiko nodded. It is. And they only get more complicated if you want to use this for other purposes. That's why we are also taught wand magic. But, as far as combat magic is concerned, ninjutsus are clearly superior. Once you get it down and master it, the power, damage, speed, everything can be higher. Axel thought about the jutsus Akiko had used, especially the last one, in which her speed had increased exponentially. Well, can't argue with that. That lightning technique which increased your speed was amazing. The ancient forbidden jutsu. Akiko winced upon remembering it. That was only half of the technique. The other half is supposed to cover my body with a protective armor of lighting. Damn. That sounds dangerous. Akiko nodded. Of course it is. But it's quite dangerous to the caster as well, that's why it's forbidden. In fact, no one is actually able to master it for a long time. The most someone has progressed in the last 2 centuries is me. 2 centuries. Axel couldn't understand it. Why is that? He asked. Well, the control and lightning affinity needed for it is quite high. Plus, very few ninjas have even been able to access it, since it's such a guarded technique. Axel swallowed his saliva. You will teach it to me if I ask, right? Akiko rolled her eyes. How greedy are you? Learn the basics first. Dream later. It will take years before you even reach that level. She said as she made the first seal of lightning bolt ninjutsu. I'm going to perform the jutsu. Watch closely. You bet your talent I'm going to watch this closely, girl, thought Axel as he increased the intensity of his arcane eyes. Akiko slowly made the hand seals as she cast the jutsu for real this time, following the exact process that she had described. Sparks began to be generated at her fingertips. Lightning release. Lightning bolt. She chanted casually, as her hand launched a powerful bolt of lightning, creating a burnt depression in the tree which she had aimed at. Zap. Now it's your turn. Try with less intensity, and don't expect much success on the first try, she was saying as she slowly turned her head towards Axel, only to see him, zap. Before she could do anything, Axel had already cast a similar lightning bolt right where she had. Though the power was admittedly quite lower, but it was definitely the same lightning jutsu that Akiko had cast moments ago. To say Akiko was shocked would be an understatement. How was Axel able to do it on his first try? Even she had taken at least a whole day before she was able to do something like that. Are you going to beat me at ninjutsu as well? She thought blankly, looking at the tree where the jutsu had impacted. She was feeling embarrassed for saying those words earlier. But this is good. She thought, thinking about the organization. She had long stopped expecting any help from her grandfather. He was a powerful man, but a peaceful one. So, if she had to stand a chance against Kraken, she needed exactly someone like Axel. Axel is like an unpolished gem. He has lots of imperfections. In a life-or-death fight, there are ways he could be bested. But, that is to be expected from someone with no systematic combat training or experience. These are things that can only be forged when he receives professional training for a long time. And she could do that for him. And once she has removed his impurities, and once she has properly polished him, if the two of them join forces, her dark affinity in his lightning. Revenge wasn't just a pipe dream for her. The training went on for a while before it was time for Axel go on and do his own training. By the way, what did you do yesterday? Asked Akiko as he was leaving. Axel raised his eyebrows, even you know about it. He asked, but then shrugged helplessly. Of course she did. It would be weird if she didn't. Because yesterday's matter had, sadly, blown up, and now everyone knew that Rose Potter and Axel Hunt had made a bet in which the loser would do whatever the winner wanted. Of course, it was blown in the sense that everyone was trolling Axel for making such a stupid bet. With her spectacular performance last year that won the Gryffindor team the Inter.House Quidditch Cup, Rose Potter was already considered the best seeker at Hogwarts. And if that wasn't enough, the videos of her previous matches and training had gone viral, leading to her getting good comments from some experts as well. And Axel, who was trying to compete with someone like Rose, was simply absurd to everyone. So, Axel was currently getting trolled all over the internet in various ways. There were memes, there were voting polls, and betting pools, all heavily in favor of Rose's winning. It's really surprising how blind these people are. To treat a prodigy like you like this, she said with some disdain. Axel rolled his eyes, so what? I've always been treated unfairly, but it doesn't affect me in the least anymore. Axel had long stopped expecting anything but the absolute worst from the people. So, it didn't affect him in the least what others thought about him. But Akiko didn't seem reconciled. I don't understand the system here. They judge students more based on their ability to tolerate cramming for written exams rather than their practical ability. There are no real rewards for being the best, no preferential treatment for the prodigies and hard-working students. The only rewards you get are some meaningless house points which, turns out, can get you absolutely nothing. Axel had to smile at that judgment is surprisingly accurate. You know, you should come to Mahudakoro, Akiko proposed out of the blue, looking absolutely sincere about her offer. You'd receive the best treatment there. Custom training, custom diet, and forbidden knowledge. I'll make sure you get everything there. You have the potential to be the best ninja in the world, and no one here even recognizes that, let alone giving you any benefits. Axel thought about it and nodded solemnly, thanks for the offer. I'll think about it. Honestly, he didn't think it would be a good idea to leave. In the future, Hogwarts was going to be the center of all the activities. And he'd rather be in on the action than let the situation get worse in his absence. It is not just a matter of his treatment. The world can turn upside down if Voldemort is allowed to take over, and then he can say goodbye to good treatment in any part of the world. That's why he's hesitant to leave Hogwarts for other places. But, who knows what the future has in store for him? No one can tell where he might end up. Though if there's really a bastard out there who can, that person better not make life more difficult for Axel than it already is, or Axel would have to consider breaking the walls to end whoever it is. Walking back into the castle, as he passed by the Great Hall, Axel had to pause in order to look at the crowd that was gathering here. Students from both Hogwarts and Mahudakoro were milling around the message board, talking excitedly about something. Weird sisters at Hogwarts. What are you going to wear? I'm considering to go for a nundu. I can't think of anything yet. Well, think fast. There's not much time left. Getting closer to investigate, Axel found a poster on the board. Halloween costume party. All students invited. Axel scoffed. A party? What a waste of time. As if he'll go there. His life is in danger here. Of course he'll have to go there. It's a plot event after all. Chapter 75. Jealous Daphne. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next morning, in the Ravenclaw's dorms, Daphne's bedroom, the morning sunshine fell on the few potted plants standing on the windowsill, pouring into a clean room containing a few more types of flora, lots of books, and some Quidditch posters. Yawn. Daphne woke up, feeling her body sore all over. Axel had gone rather hard on her last night, not even letting her take any breaks. All she could do was grit her teeth and bear it, holding in her moans until they were finished. If he doesn't take responsibility now, I swear I'll commit suicide, she thought, thinking of his promise. Really, if he doesn't fulfill her one wish after making her train so hard, she would feel really unreconciled. Just as she was considering stealing a few more minutes of sleep, her Magi.mirror suddenly rang, making her sigh as she tried to find it. Astoria. Since it was just her sister, Daphne picked up the call without bothering to fix her groggy appearance. Astoria's cute face popped up, holding the Magi.mirror too close to her face. "Hey Tori, began Daphne casually, but her sister's frantic voice cut her off. "Daphne. What the hell is happening at Hogwarts?" Daphne yawned. "What is it?" "The forums, the internet, everyone is bad-mouthing Brother Axel." Daphne sighed. "Oh, that. It has reached so far." This was indeed troubling. "Yes, that. It is so infuriating. It's so unfair. Rose has been playing Quidditch for so long and Big Brother Axel hasn't even played it. Why is it so unfair to Big Brother Axel?" Daphne chuckled at Astoria's anxious ramblings. "Tori, let me tell you one thing," she said, making the blabbering girl pause. "What?" Daphne lazily plopped her head back into the pillows. "That guy, there's no way in hell he's losing this," she said with surety. Daphne didn't know why she was so sure herself. She had never seen Axel play. But, after getting surprised by his specialties again and again, Daphne had developed this strong confidence in Axel that now she's not worried about him losing at all. That guy won't lose unless he wants to. "So, don't worry your little head over it," she said to Astoria. "Now tell me how my plants are doing. Are you properly taking care of them?" Astoria pouted. "I am, but is it necessary? I'm already healed, so why can't we just have the house elves take care of it?" Daphne put away her smile as she brought her face closer to the screen. "Astoria, you're a greengrass. Nature is a part of your being. There's a reason why your illness used to be stable when surrounded in greenery." Astoria rolled her eyes. Yeah, whatever," she said sullenly. "Anyways, what are your plans for Halloween?" asked Daphne with a smile, knowing exactly what would cheer up her sister. Halloween was coming up and her sister really liked cosplaying. And her words had the desired effect since Astoria's face lit up on that, of course. "I'll be going to a party with Mom. You want to see my costume?" "Of course." Daphne smiled. Astoria began enthusiastically showing off her costume. "See. This time the party is going to be so fun." "Too bad you're not going to be able to come," said Astoria teasingly. Daphne grinned mischievously at that. "Well, guess what? This time, Hogwarts is also going to step up its Halloween celebration." Astoria's eyes widened. "You're kidding." Daphne let out an evil chuckle. "Ha, guess you were too focused on Axel to read the other news, Lil Tori. Instead of the usual feast, there's going to be a costume party this time. Too bad you can't be there." "What? No." Astoria screamed. "Why was I not born a year earlier?" Astoria screamed. And laughing with satisfaction, Daphne triumphantly cut the call. "Sigh, what am I going to do next year?" muttered Daphne, knowing that her sister would be here next year. That girl would not leave her side even for a minute, so how is she supposed to spend time with Axel at that time? Well, let's worry about the current problems first, she thought as she checked the Magi.hive for news related to the Rose Axel fiasco. And soon, a frown slowly marred her face. Nope, she wasn't worried about people talking bad about Axel. She knew that guy couldn't care less about these things. What she was worried about was a completely opposite kind of problem. After this incident, Axel, who had always kept a low profile, was once again pushed to the spotlight. His pictures and videos were being circulated on various platforms, and it was starting to attract the wrong sort of attention. Daphne read some of the comments. So what even if he loses? At least he has the balls to face someone on pro level. I'm with Axel. Yeah, I like his attitude. So what if it's the girl who lived? He doesn't simp for her like others. Axel, please challenge me as well. I'll lose and do anything you want. Daphne. How to say it? Axel's appearance was quite eye-catching. Usually, Axel has this effect that makes people not focus much on him or his appearance whenever someone is in his presence. But too bad, that mysterious effect doesn't seem to work when his picture is seen through the screen instead of seeing it in person. With his sharp and handsome features, accentuated with the light scars and the smooth and silky raven hair stylishly messed up, he gives off this bad boy charm that can hardly be ignored. So now, many girls are coming out to defend him, saying it needs balls for someone to challenge the girl who lived herself without any fear. But, that wasn't enough. Daphne rubbed her face in exasperation as she read some other threads which were very popular right now. Axo's ship, Rose x Axel, these kinds of posts were everywhere. Upon opening one of them, some infuriating shit popped up. Now that I look at it from another perspective, isn't this like a scene from a romantic story? Rose calls out Axel due to jealousy when she sees him with other girls, and they make a bet in which the loser will have to do whatever the winner wants. Yes. I thought I was the only one who saw it that way. I'm shipping them so hard. They both secretly like each other but are very resistant to admit it. I simply love this love-hate relation. Yep, this was the most infuriating thing of all to Daphne. Many people, who apparently had too much time on their hands, had begun to ship Axel and Rose, making Daphne want to say a few choice words to them. Why is it their business who pairs up with whom? And how the hell did they see this kind of scenario as something remotely romantic? Axel and Rose clearly hate each other. Daphne threw her phone away in annoyance. F# Indian rupee hashtag $cent $$ hashtag Indian rupee square root times square root. It's not like that at all. Are these people blind? They clearly hate each other. There's nothing like that between them. She exclaimed in vexation. Her annoyance was immeasurable and her day was ruined. She'll need some of Axel's presence to wash this off. So, she was now looking forward to their next training meeting, and dreading it at the same time. Somewhere inside Hogwarts, in a heavily warded room, a small diary remained opened on a desk, showing words from time to time. The room was filled with different types of bizarre ingredients, and drawn with different kinds of symbols. There were also cages, big and small, with various creatures locked inside them. You think this is necessary? It could be dangerous, a person said, looking into the screen of the Magi. Mirror held in their hand. In the screen, the image of a masked man in a dark cloak could be seen. It is. And you should do what you're told. You've already angered the Dark Lord. The death of the basilisk, replied the masked man, dark energy swirling around him. The person became a bit annoyed. You are not the one to talk, after getting your headquarters raided single-handedly by just one guy. And you've still got nothing on him. So, don't tell me about what and what not to do. The task I've been given is too insane. The dark magic around the masked man flared again. The guy who raided us. I'll find him one day. And as for giving you orders, well, these are Dark Lord's orders, not mine. But, the person tried to protest, but the diary glowed at this moment and the person stopped protesting. "Do you have enough sacrifices?" asked the masked man. The person glanced at the stacked cages in the room. "I do." "Good. Keep trying. Time skip Halloween, just like this the days at Hogwarts passed. Axel trained daily with Akiko and the real training making him have some deep realizations. Not only for his attitude towards training, but towards life in general. And during this time, he continued to train Daphne as well, making her have some rather noticeable improvements. Just like that, October 31st arrived. It was a day that everyone had been looking for. Because with all the attention that was focused on Hogwarts, it had been decided that Hogwarts would host a Halloween costume party to celebrate it and make this event more exciting. But surprisingly, the excitement for tomorrow was also not small as well. 1st of November, the day after Halloween. Because, tomorrow is the highly awaited Gryffindor vs Slytherin match. The match has been so hyped up that they have had to expand the Quidditch stadium, in order to accommodate the growing number of people who were now going to come to Hogwarts to see the match. The security had been doubled, with Aurors and Ninja Corps both being deployed. So with these events about to be held, Hogwarts was currently abuzz with activity. "What are you going to be wearing for the costume party tonight?" asked Daphne after they had finished training. Axel shrugged, "Not going." Daphne frowned, "Why not?" "It's going to be fun." "I don't have time. Besides, I don't like parties." Axel really didn't. He had only been to one party in his life, and it was thrown by the rich Muggle boy he had beaten. In his mind, a party is a place where rich assholes gather. "Oh, come on. You have to come. I want to see you in a costume." Daphne protested. She imagined seeing Axel wearing a pair of cute cat ears and blushed. Axel rolled his eyes, "Not happening." "Don't even think about it." Daphne blinked her eyes cutely at Axel, "Please." Axel frowned, "Don't do that. Please. I said, don't do that. Please." Axel gritted his teeth, "Fine. But no stupid costume." There were 2 reasons he agreed, none of which were because he couldn't deny her. Absolutely not. He was still a Sigma. Done. Daphne jumped in joy. She knew better than to push her luck. Costumes weren't compulsory. If you don't want to put on a costume, you could just put on a mask. This interaction says a lot about how far Axel has come from his previous self. The walls are slowly coming down, though only for one person. It's Halloween. And Halloweens at Hogwarts are always peaceful, right? Anyways, how was the beginning? Next chapter. Halloween, raising the flag. Next. Special mission. School in danger. Next, Quidditch. 1 vs all. Best time to subscribe on Patreon. Come support me. Patreon.com/snollygoster. Chapter 76. Halloween and raising a flag. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Why is it taking so long? Thought Axel as he stood in front of the Ravenclaw Tower. Wearing a formal suit he had bought on his shopping spree this summer, he was currently waiting for Daphne, who was taking too much time to come, and he was now getting impatient. Every time, the door would open and instead of Daphne someone else would step out, increasing his annoyance. Sigh. Axel thought back to why he was doing this. If you look at the situation, it could easily be seen that he has no reason to go to the party. In fact, there are a lot of ways he could be putting his time to better use right now. But still, here he was, wasting his time on this silly event. Why? It was certainly not just because of Daphne's spoiled behavior. Well, maybe that played a part, but it was more due to the realizations he has had lately. The first thing he realized is, it's actually quite easy to kill someone. And of course, that means it's equally easy to get killed as well. He has learnt that in his training with Akiko, who is really going all out in teaching him. And, if it is so easy for him to die, he thought, would I be reconciled if I just die just like that? Has my life so far been worth it? Have I lived enough? And that's when he realized, living enough. What a joke. He hasn't lived at all. For as long as he could remember, things have always been difficult for him. They were difficult when he was at the orphanage, they were difficult when he was at the Muggle school, and they are difficult now, with the new enemies popping up. But he has always been a fighter. He wouldn't stay satisfied with the lousy cards that life had offered to him. And so, he fought, he struggled, and he worked hard, to climb higher in life and not settle with the sorry excuse he had gotten for a life. And so, for as long as he can remember, Axel has never been able to stop for a moment, and live. At all. To the point that he even has forgotten the worth of his life. What's a life in which he has to keep working hard every single day until you either defeat all of the growing list of enemies, or die trying? His future was getting bleaker and bleaker. Before getting tortured, he had been living a much simpler life. He had a goal to open a simple business, get rich, and enjoy life. And it was a very easy and reachable goal, one he could achieve with little effort and with little risk. He had high hopes. But now, he first has to deal with the organization, and if he survives, there's still Voldemort and his army. Is this still a life he would endure inhumane torture for? Is this still the life he would give his all to protect in an extremely desperate situation, just like he did it the last time when he was under the Cruciatus? He was afraid that he might not. That's why, he has decided to take a little break. To have a little taste of what could be a better life, to find out things that he would enjoy doing, to have some things to look forward to. So that when he gets back to work again, he would know exactly what was at stake. But of course, the break would be short. He doesn't have the luxury to have a bigger one. And that is how, he is finding himself here today, standing in front of the Ravenclaw Tower to wait for Daphne. He hadn't thought of wasting his break for this, but Daphne had been very persuasive. Anyways, if there's someone who can endure his rigid attitude and get him to have even a modicum of fun, it would be that girl. As he waited, the entrance opened once again, but this time, rather than students, no one came out. The doors just opened and closed. And once again, Axel smelt a familiar aroma move past him. Martina, he murmured in realization. There was a sound of someone tripping, or almost tripping before Martina's voice sounded. Axel. Oh, Axel had somewhat forgotten about it, but he had lowered his presence a little until now, in order to not draw attention. Looks like he just now scared the girl, again. Martina made herself visible, looking stunning in her Halloween costume. Why are you sneaking around? Asked Axel. Martina shrugged helplessly. The costume was attracting too much attention, and I didn't want to be surrounded, she said, looking back at the common room entrance. Axel looked at her outfit. She had on a red vest, a red coat, and black spandex with red lining. Her feet were covered with black boots, and her hands had fingerless black gloves with red details. What costume is that? Martina looked at herself. Oh, I'm Scarlet Witch. It's a Muggle comic book character. Axel was still scrutinizing her costume. It doesn't look ordinary, he commented, activating arcane eyes. It was filled with runes and magic. Martina's eyes lit up in pleasant surprise, you can tell. Of course it's not ordinary, she said, coming closer to whisper to him. I used some of the basilisk materials to make this. It's just a prototype, and I'm still experimenting, but let me tell you, this is amazing. I've made one for you as well. It's almost complete. Axel nodded, extremely interested. What are its features? It looked like Christmas had come early for Martina, being able to talk with someone about it. Oh, you won't believe it, she said excitedly, a privacy charm settling around them even as she spoke. Since basilisk skin has very high resistance to magic, I've been able to salvage some of that property using runes. Really effective against dark magic. And then I can change it to any costume I want, Martina was still talking when the door to the common room opened yet again, and this time, Daphne finally stepped out, taking away Axel's focus. Daphne was wearing an off-shoulder royal blue gown that fit her body perfectly till knees, after which it flared out to resemble the tail of a mermaid. Her cheeks had light traces of blue scale patterns complementing her features, and she had matching earrings to go along with it. Her hands were wrapped in blue gloves that reached above her elbows, and click-clack sounds reverberated from her heel hidden under her dress. It didn't take a genius to figure out that she was a mermaid tonight. Axel didn't properly register Martina's words since he looked at Daphne with perplexity. He didn't know why, but looking at her gave him a feeling of naturality. Daphne had brightened up as soon as she had seen Axel waiting for her. As he had promised, Axel was not wearing any costume, but he did put on a brand new trending suit, looking extremely dashing. But, her expression dimmed when she saw who he was talking to. She looked at Martina and then herself, and couldn't help feeling insecure, making her steps falter. She gripped her dress and looked down as she tried to walk steadily in her high heels, but at this moment, a hand gripped her glow-covered wrist, stabilizing her. "I think we'll need to train your balance next," chided Axel as he helped her walk. "Or I'll be embarrassed to call myself your teacher." Daphne felt so overwhelmed that she felt like passing out. "Thanks. You look great." Her makeup did its best to hide the blush that had spread on her cheeks, and she felt a scorching feel in her wrist where his hand was gripping hers, even through the glove. "Wish I wasn't wearing those gloves," an idle thought popped into her mind. Axel shrugged. "You too. But why put so much effort? We're late now." Daphne smiled brightly, "Because I wanted to. Wait." She then rummaged through her satchel and produced a masquerade mask which would cover half of his face. "Here. Wear this. Fewer people will recognize you," she said, giving it to him. "Oh, thanks." Axel gratefully put on the mask. With the match tomorrow, many people would likely come to bother him. It's very thoughtful of Daphne to bring a mask. But Daphne breathed a sigh of relief. With how handsome Axel was looking, she was afraid he would attract too many vixens tonight. It would be better if he had his face covered all the time. Axel glanced back at Martina. "Let's go." Martina looked at Daphne's unwelcoming look and shook her head with a forced smile. "I still had a few matters to attend to. You two go first." Daphne smiled. "All right, we'll be leaving first then," she said, dragging Axel along. Looking at the backs of Axel's and Daphne leaving together in perfect harmony, Martina somehow felt very lonely. "I was still not finished about the suit," she murmured to herself. Like always, Hogwarts was really digging the Halloween theme. The Great Hall had undergone a total remodeling. The 4 long tables were replaced by smaller round tables, and the whole place had been festooned with confectionery-filled pumpkins, apples, black cauldrons of big lollipops, carrot cake, bats, orange streamers, goblets of colored sweets, pumpkin juice, and all sorts of Halloween-related decorations. The student population had gone bonkers over preparing their costumes for this event. Although it had already been said that students can prepare their own costumes using their magic or get others to do it for them, but of course, all of them only wanted the best costumes. Some of the students got their families to send them costumes while the others ordered online. As a result, outposts had been arriving non-stop at Hogwarts, making it a giant ollery. "Looks like the party started," said Susan Bones, who was wearing a pink pixie dress, with 2 delicate little wings attached which were fluttering on their own. Her costume was matching with Hannah, who was wearing a fairy costume, with insect wings fluttering behind her. "This is awesome," said Neville in a weird-looking plant outfit, looking around at the Great Hall. And indeed, the party was awesome. Usually, the Great Hall is always illuminated very brightly with the numerous candles that are always floating under the enchanted ceiling. But tonight, the number of candles had been reduced to provide just enough light for everyone to see but also properly bring out the effect of the pumpkin lamps that were also floating around. Music suitable for Halloween played in the background, and sweets of all kinds could be seen everywhere. What was most eye-catching were the students who were wearing all sorts of costumes from scary ones to funny ones. "Yeah, it is awesome," said Rose, agreeing with Neville. "But Neville, what the hell are you wearing?" "What? You can't tell." "It's Mimbulus Membletonia," said Neville defensively as he looked down at his own bulbous outfit. "I could tell," said Hermione, "but I can't tell what your costume is, Rose." "It's so cute." Rose looked down at her own costume. It was a beautiful dress and she had a pair of rabbit ears on her head which twitched from time to time. Rose was surprised. "You don't know?" "Oh, of course you wouldn't. I'm Babbity Rabbity. It's from a wizard fairy tale." "Oh. Wizards also have fairy tales. How have I not read them?" exclaimed Hermione in worry, looking as she was about to rush to the library right now. Hermione herself had opted for a hag costume. With a dark cloak, messy hair, an elongated nose, and necklace of small skulls with glowing eyes, she definitely looked like how she always looked. Susan rolled her eyes. "Relax, Hermione. They won't be coming in exams tomorrow," she joked. "Now let's get moving. We have to show off our costumes. Who knows? Maybe one of us might win the prize," she said, dragging everyone in. The group made their way into the great hall, looking around at everyone's costume. It looked like everyone had gone all out. And why wouldn't they? The event was being broadcasted and there was also a best costume contest as well. While they were looking around, a loud party horn suddenly blared up right behind them, making them all jump. It was Fred and George, dressed as clowns. "Hey Fred, it would seem that our dark lady has put on a disguise tonight," said George with narrowed eyes. "Yes Georgie, and out of everything, she chooses to be the innocent Babbity Rabbity," said Fred in surprise. "I say it is a ploy, to make the enemy lower their guard, so that we can destroy them in the war which is tomorrow." Rose was not impressed by the twins' antics. Not when there were already rumors about her being evil. "I'm a dark lady in disguise." "Alright, but I see that you two are still clowns." The twins were amused. "That we are," said Fred, or was it George? "We have always been," said the other. "But tonight, we have the excuse, to do the things which we have been wanting to do," they finished as they high-fived. At this moment, a few people started looking and pointing at the entrance, making the group also pay attention. Hunt. Rose's teeth clenched at the sight of the masked guy walking in with Daphne. She had read the news, of course. So she knew what people were saying about herself and Axel being secretly in love with each other, and it vexed her to no end. "Roxel. Are you fucking kidding me?" "Oh, this is Axel?" asked the twins together. Then they grinned as they exchanged a glance. "Enemy spotted." "Fred." "Yes George. I know what we're doing today." "Wait what?" Rose had a bad feeling about this. Really bad. Bruh, I need all the power stones you can donate, quick. Those who've already spent today give me tomorrow. Also, come read ahead and support me on Patreon. Patreon.com/snollygoster. Next chapter. Special mission. School in danger. Next. A creature above XXXXX. There's a fight. Next. Quidditch. One versus all, there's a thrashing. Chapter 77. Special mission. School in danger. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the dim lighting, the great hall, decorated with various Halloween decorations, coupled with the music blaring in the background, looked completely different from its usual magnificence. At one side, a huge buffet was arranged on a table, with all sorts of Halloween-themed dishes, and on the other, a stage was built with posters of 7 weird people and various musical instruments installed. Walking in with Daphne, Axel looked around the great hall. People were wearing all sorts of bizarre costumes, most of which he couldn't even recognize. They were talking, dancing, laughing, eating, scaring each other, or pulling pranks. "We're on time. Look, it's the Weird Sisters!" exclaimed Daphne, pointing at the stage where the music was coming from. And indeed, currently, everyone's attention had shifted towards the stage where 7 witches appeared. They were also in Halloween getup, looking like zombies. "Who are they?" asked Axel as a commotion started as soon as they appeared on the stage. Daphne was not surprised that Hermit Axel didn't know about it. "They're the most popular musical band. They are going to do a concert here tonight," she explained, dragging him along with the crowd. "Are they a big deal?" "Big deal. They have fans all over the world. Look around. Everyone is here for them," said Daphne, and indeed a huge crowd was now gathering in front of the stage as the students cheered and yelled. "Let's go, we have to get to the front spot," exclaimed Daphne, dragging him into the crowd. The concert started soon, and the crowd went wild, screaming and dancing along with the music. Standing in between the crowd of people, Axel looked at Daphne, who was vibing along with the music, and Daphne also looked at him. Daphne shouted something which he couldn't hear. "Can't hear you," yelled Axel, his sense of hearing drastically lowered using super sense. Daphne just grabbed his hand and raised it into the air, making the both of them to move to the beats of music. It was a weird experience, moving along the rhythm in a crowd of people who are all screaming, dancing and jumping like crazy. But it was not unpleasant. After a while, they exited the crowd to take a break with the concert still going on in the background. "Wasn't it great?" "You were going to miss all this," said Daphne, leaning closer to be heard over the music. "Was it?" wondered Axel. He didn't know. But it was definitely unsafe. It's quite easy to be attacked in such a crowd. Daphne rolled her eyes at him. "Don't give me that look. For once, I'm going to have you live a little," she said as she dragged him towards the stalls. "What look?" wondered Axel. He was sure he hadn't done anything. Daphne picked up 2 servings of what looked like eyeballs stuck with a toothpick. "Here, try this," she said, picking up one by the toothpick and offering it to his mouth. "Whose eyeballs are these?" asked Axel, craning his neck away from the thing. Chuckling softly, Daphne ate the other eyeball to show him. "It's not an eyeball, it's a marshmallow," she exclaimed. Axel frowned, looking at the eyeball. "How could you tell?" Daphne shook her head. "That's the thing. You don't find out until you eat it," she said, taking a bite out of a finger dripping with blood next. "Oh, fries with ketchup. Nice." Axel sighed. Daphne had already taken his permission to skip the diet for tonight. And since Axel had decided to take a break tonight, he had decided to just go along with whatever for once. But, looking at her eating away freely, he was still getting second-hand diabetes. "This is going to mess up all the dieting you've done," he couldn't help but say. Eating another bloody finger, Daphne looked down at herself. "Oh fuck it, my tummy has never been so flat before. It deserves a reward," she said, patting her belly which had indeed flattened after Axel's intense training, not that it was fat before. "Now, remember you're on break. So open up," she said, still holding out the eyeball to mouth. Axel sighed and finally took a bite. It was the first time he was eating something other than his diet in a while. And he has to accept, it was fucking delicious. "You're aware you're going to have to train double after this, right?" he asked Daphne, who was grinning like a Cheshire cat after feeding him. Daphne sighed blissfully. "I leave that to my future self. But this is worth it." Daphne's smile seemed infectious, as a small smile slowly came to Axel's face as well. "Well, I guess I'll let go for tonight as well." They started to try different types of foods one after another. Witch's brew, blood splatter cookie platter, treats not tricks, mummy hot dogs, graveyard parfait, things like that. Axel, you're here. While they were still eating, someone called Axel. Axel and Daphne turned to see Patricia walking towards them. She was dressed as an Amazoness tonight, wearing a revealing warrior outfit which was turning a lot of heads. Daphne's smile stiffened as soon as she saw the older girl. How vulgar, she muttered to herself. Though Daphne knew that it was only her jealousy speaking. Patricia seemed to have heard that as she smiled at Daphne, not at all bothered. This is a Princess Diana costume. It's quite normal in Wizarding Brazil. Please don't disrespect our culture. Daphne had nothing to say to that, only cursing the fact that she was only 12, and there were some things she couldn't have right now. Patricia then turned to Axel. Axel, tomorrow's our match. Yeah. So what? Patricia didn't know what to do with this guy. She was dying with trepidation right now just thinking about the millions of ways they could lose tomorrow's match, and the person she had pinned all her hopes on is so nonchalant about the whole thing, making her question her decision yet again. Patricia sighed, the team I have this time is the worst team House Slytherin has ever had. The remaining good players I had recruited have left because I couldn't explain why our seeker doesn't come to practice even though he's never played Quidditch before. So we're left with a bunch of noobs for tomorrow's match, she said, her calm facade slipping. So? Asked Axel, as if he couldn't understand where the problem was. Patricia took in a deep breath, trying not to snap at the guy. He was her only hope now, and she can't afford to have him leaving the team as well. So, I'm wondering what we are supposed to do tomorrow. And should I worry about the match or the aftermath after we lose to Gryffindor under my terrible leadership, she said, barely keeping her composure. Axel smiled, satisfied to see that she had stopped her threats now. Yep, he was just testing her. Listen, Captain, the only thing you need to worry about, he said in a relaxed tone, is to decide the point margin you want to win with. Leave the rest to me. Oh, overconfident much? Said someone, as a ball was thrown at Axel at high speed from behind. Since Daphne was standing right in front of him, Axel didn't dodge the ball, and it was too late for using magic. So, he could only deflect it. Plop, but unexpectedly, the ball exploded on contact, spraying golden and scarlet color all around. Daphne was saved since she was shielded by Axel, but Axel and Patricia had gotten paint splatter on their outfits, drawing a lot of attention. Witnessing such a scene, gasps were accompanied by sounds of camera flashes, and many people had begun filming it on their Magi. Mirrors. Yep, people weren't going to miss this opportunity. Honk honk, happy Halloween! Exclaimed the culprits, the Weasley twins together after blowing the party horns, and many people laughed along with them, finding this funny. People are like this. They find these things funny as long as it doesn't happen to them. Don't kill them, don't kill them, don't kill them, okay maybe later, but not now. Axel slowly removed his mask and shook off its paint as he casually looked at the culprits. Scourgify, he muttered, taking out his wand, removing the paint off himself, and from the still stunned Patricia. The paint came off, but the stains were still there. Crack crackle, Axel's knuckles cracked as he clenched them into fists. He wasn't angry, no. He had received far worse treatment than this multiple times back when he was on the streets. So of course just a bit of paint wasn't going to faze him. But, O.org retaliation is a must, that's right, he has to dish out multiple times what he received just now. Because, first of all, that suit was expensive. Second, the paint was scarlet and gold, meaning they were clearly sending a message here. This is not a simple prank, but a humiliating attack. And if he didn't retaliate appropriately, it'll send out the wrong message. Third, no matter if he was still very weak to defeat some of the enemies he would have to face in the future, he was still not weak enough to have to take this kind of treatment from a couple of clowns. As the person with power, he should be the bully, not the other way around. Otherwise, all this power is useless. Just as Axel was going to take action, a system notification flashed in front of his eyes. Special quest. School in danger. An extremely dangerous creature has been summoned into Hogwarts, and it's currently making its way down here. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to prevent it from reaching here, or it could result in extreme consequences. Rewards. Special skill. Barrier. Limited information on Atlantis. System. What the fuck? Give me more details. What kind of creature are we dealing with? What's its danger categorization? The information came, and Axel's eyes got stuck on the system interface, ignoring the clowns completely. He can also deal with them in the match tomorrow and the mission right now. Fuck. Isn't this too fucking difficult? Axel was occupied, but nothing was holding back Patricia. Fred and George Weasley. I challenge the two of you to an honor duel right now. The duel doesn't end until one side is completely unconscious, she exclaimed, drawing her wand and pointing it at them. Meanwhile, Daphne dragged Axel away from the commotion, fearing he might murder someone. Are you alright? You're not hurt, are you? She asked anxiously. With all his attention on the mission, Axel snorted, knowing that his break was over. I'm fine. But I need to leave. Now, he said, looking around for someone. So much for fun, he thought. What? But we were just getting started. There's so much to do. Axel grabbed Daphne's shoulders and looked into her eyes in all seriousness. Daphne, I need to leave. Now. Daphne found herself unable to deny his words. But, she didn't want it to end yet. This had been turning out to be the best night of her life. Alright, then let's go Toj. No. You're staying here. And don't you dare leave this place until I come back. Find a professor and stay close to them. Alright, said Daphne in resignation. Daphne didn't know what was happening, but she could tell that Axel meant business right now. So, she went along with his demands. But that didn't mean she wasn't crestfallen right now. I'll do whatever you ask, but please don't do something that'll get you into trouble, she said despondently. Don't worry. Axel nodded in relief as he turned to leave. He was really glad she understood the severity of the situation. And Daphne, he paused. Yes. Axel scratched his head as he looked away. Thanks for tonight. I think I had fun, he said, looking back at her. Ba.dump. Daphne was stunned as an unbelievable feeling rushed through her. She began, but Axel was already off, disappearing into the crowd. It was definitely good that he had, because Daphne's mental faculties were no longer working properly and she would probably have made a fool of herself if he had stayed. Axel didn't directly go to the fight. He first had something else to do. Martina. Axel quickly found Martina even in the crowd. She was sitting together with Luna, away from all the commotion, literally on the opposite end of the Great Hall. Oh, Axel. Do you know what the commotion there is about? She asked, pointing at the crowd that was gathering on the other side. Hello Axel, you seem to be in trouble, greeted Luna casually with her usual half-closed eyes. She was in a bizarre outfit tonight, with a crumpled horn on her head. Hi Luna, Axel didn't have time to chat with the girl so he went to business. Martina, you said the combat suit you made for me was almost ready, do you have it on you right now? He asked urgently. That's the reason why he's here. The information about the creature provided by the system is too overwhelming, and he was going to be needing more than just the clothes on his back for his safety. Now, normally one wouldn't carry such stuff on them all the time, but Martina was different. The small handbag which she kept on her person all the time is phenomenal. She has a research lab in there and also has enough space to put a giant basilisk inside. And sure enough, Martina nodded her head, yeah, it's here. But why are you asking for it right now? Because I need it right now. Things are turning out like last Halloween, said Axel, trying to make her understand that he was not fucking around. And his words had the desired effect, as Martina was instantly alarmed as she stood up from her seat. Again. But isn't the basilisk already? It's not a basilisk. It's something more dangerous. Now, give me the suit. Quick. It's coming this way, said Axel, cutting her off. All the nonsense was instantly gone as she brought out a combat suit made out of black leather. I'm also coming, she said, taking out her staff as her costume turned purple and black, shifting into combat mode. Axel shrugged. With the current situation, I could definitely use a hand, he said, turning to leave. How about one more? Came a voice, and Axel saw Akiko appear behind them. Akiko was in a fox spirit costume tonight, with 2 fox ears on her head and a tail on her back. She had been listening into the conversation. Axel grinned. I was counting on it. Let's go. The 3 of them made their way out of the hall and they could finally converse freely. Martina looked at Axel and asked exactly what he had asked the system. Axel, do you know what creature it is? And how dangerous is it? Could it actually be 5x.es? 5x.es. Axel had a grim expression on his face as he recalled the system's information. Its danger categorization, let's just say that 5 isn't enough to cut it. Yep, that was the thing. This thing was so dangerous that XXXXX was not enough to describe it. That's why Axel was so serious right now. He didn't think he was powerful enough to deal with it without any help. But, if it's with these 2. Axel looked at Martina and Akiko on either side of him. The most broken students of Hogwarts and Mahutakoro. Their power level at their age was not something that could be understood with common sense. If the 3 of them join forces, ain't no way we could lose, right? AN Power Stones. Revenge will be taken in the match. But what could be the creature? Next chapter. Fight. Strongest trio versus. Come read ahead and support me. Patreon.com/snollygoster. Chapter 78. Creature above XXXXX. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What did you say? Above XXXXX. Exclaimed Martina as the 3 of them stood in a quiet corridor outside the Great Hall. Unfortunately, yes. It's a very powerful dark creature, confirmed Axel. Akiko nodded grimly. That would explain it, she said in realization. Explain what? Asked Axel quickly. If Akiko could explain this, it would save him the trouble of explaining this by himself. The genius. Neen glanced at Martina with hesitation. Axel waved his hand. She's fine, he said, vouching for Martina. Those words might not mean much if someone else said it, but coming from someone who had made her sign a secrecy contract just to keep his secrets, Akiko knew that Martina could be trusted, at least in this urgent situation. She nodded, as she decided to go with it. Alright, I'm very sensitive to Een or darkness magic. And just a few moments ago, I suddenly felt a terrible disturbance in the Een element that almost made me pass out, she explained. It's the reason why she came to find Axel in the first place. Her grandfather is not here and there's no one else she could trust about her Een affinity secret. I've never sensed anything like this before, she said gravely. Axel shook his head inwardly. This much wasn't enough. The 2 of them need to know more in order to face the creature. But the problem was, he couldn't explain how he knew about it. I know a bit more about this creature, he said, drawing everyone's attention. You know. What is it that we're facing? You both already know about Dementors, right? He asked. Akiko and Martina nodded in affirmation. Is it the Dementors again? Asked Martina with some distress. Axel chuckled ironically. If it was only that easy. It's not. It is an evolution of a Dementor. It's called a Demogorgon, he said, recalling the information he had gotten from the system. What? The 2 girls were understandably mystified. So, Axel explained to them as quickly as possible. Dementors are actually incomplete creatures. They seek darkness and souls for their completion. And when a sufficient number of souls and dark energy is consumed, under the right circumstances, they can evolve. They become more powerful, more sentient, more corporeal. And a lot more dangerous. And that thing. It's actually in school right now. Martina covered her mouth in horror. How did it end up here? Axel shook his head. The situation is beyond improbable, but the priority is how to deal with it before it's too late. Actually, the circumstances of evolution are too difficult to be met on Earth, what with the lack of sufficient dark magic. And since the creature is more corporeal, it loses its ability to travel from the netherworld to here. So, these creatures are only supposed to be found in the netherworld. But somehow, it's here tonight in Hogwarts, about to cause a lot of mayhem. How do we deal with it? Akiko asked the main question. Both the girls at least had enough sense to not ask how Axel knew what he knew. Axel looked into his magi.mirror, smoothly hinting at the source of his information. It's a very dangerous creature. Fighting it alone without prior preparations guarantees certain death for each one of us. Now that was a blow that took them by surprise. Each of them was somewhat aware of the other's power. Even all on their own, each of them was a force to be reckoned with different types of skills and specialties. Even XXXXX creatures like dragons weren't impossible for them to deal with, let alone just surviving against one. But here Axel was, guaranteeing certain death in a 1.1 confrontation against this creature. But, since we are going to be facing it together, with such preparations, we have a real shot at this, he said, reigniting their hopes. What do we have to do? Asked Martina, and Akiko nodded. Axel looked at her seriously. How powerful is your Patronus? Martina nodded a bit apprehensively. It's quite powerful. But it hadn't properly worked in their last encounter with Dementors on the previous Halloween. She had been too scared and unfocused to cast it in one attempt, almost losing their lives. Don't hesitate. You can do it, said Axel with surety. Even though this girl could be quite unreliable, Axel at least had this much faith in her ability. Axel then looked at Akiko. How many weapons do you have? As the granddaughter of Hiroshi Yamazaki and the heiress of two powerful clans. Akiko smirked, a lot. In front of Axel's eyes, the system interface showed him the live location of the Demogorgon as he ran through the corridors in a blur together with Akiko, with Martina actually flying behind them. Of course, all three of them were almost invisible, only showing themselves enough to be able to see each other. Axel was currently wearing a black hoodie with the hood on, black jeans, and black sneakers. His hands had fingerless gloves and his face was covered with a mask, only leaving his eyes visible. Due to necessity, Martina had also lent a suit Akiko, which was one of the prototypes she had made for herself. Since the suits can change into anything, she had turned it into her usual tight ninja clothing that outlined her curves, and like Axel, her face also had a mask on. It's close. I can feel it. Axel nodded. It was indeed close. And now, even he could feel it. The familiar ominous and hopeless feeling, quite similar to the one he felt in the Dementor's presence, only much more sinister. And judging by the quick intensification of this feeling, it would seem that they were almost there. Martina, it's time, Axel said, glancing back at Martina. It was better to cast the Patronus before. With the unreliability of Martina, it's not certain if she would be able to do it after they come closer to the creature. Martina nodded, taking out her staff. She would be lying to say that she wasn't nervous. From what Axel had explained, there were high chances she could die a horrible death just now. But, whether she liked it or not, she was not a runner. She was a coward, but she wouldn't run away from situations like this, a situation where she's risking her own life for saving others. Even though this was what had gotten her killed in her previous life. Child of magic, she used her second cheat ability that she had gotten for saving the previous world. Yes, this was the reason for her insane magical talent. Magic comes easily to her, and the power of every magic spell she casts can be magnified multiple times according to her will. Sadly, she had not been able to use this gift to its full potential. Closing her eyes, she recalled all the happy memories she had formed in this world, as well as the happiness of saving the lives of millions of people in her previous world with her research. And finally, she recalled Axel's powerful and reassuring presence right beside her, which made her fear vanish, filling her up with motivation. Yes, she couldn't embarrass herself again. Raising the staff, she said the incantation. Expecto Patronum. A bright light erupted from her staff, lighting up the whole corridor as an extremely corporeal and life-like owl emerged from her wand. The creative seemed to have a sentience of its own as it flew around and came to sit on Martina's shoulder. Dense waves of positive energy radiated from it, completely disrupting the previous gloomy atmosphere. It worked. Martina jumped in joy, feeling accomplished at not failing like the previous time. Don't celebrate yet, muttered Akiko, feeling the dark presence getting stronger as they reached their destination. In the next moment, they heard a sound. It was a creepy mixture of breathing and groaning, which sent chills down their spine. All right, I'm scared, admitted Martina, moving a bit closer to Axel. Just stay back. You've done your part. We'll do the rest, said Axel, running forward to the next corridor where the creature was. There they saw it, a giant silhouette, wrapped in a cloak, currently hunched over in a facing away from them. It must have sensed their approach, because it turned its head in their direction, slowly drawing to its full height. The moonlight coming from the window in the corridor fell on the creature, and two things became visible at that moment, surprising them. First, the creature's appearance. It was around 15 feet tall, quite taller than a Dementor, wrapped in a dark torn and shabby cloak and rotten flesh visible at the uncovered parts. The second thing that was very noticeable was, Mrs. Norris. Cried Martina in horror. Blood was clearly dripping from the creature's cloth-covered head that only exposed a mouth. And lying on the ground where the creature was previously hunched over, was the half-eaten body of a cat which used to be Mrs. Norris. More corporeal indeed, thought Axel, truly realizing what that meant. This thing ate more than just souls. The creature sucked in a breath and then, screee. It screeched in one of the most sickening sound Axel had heard, which even trumped that of Umbridge's. A wave of its aura hit them, clashing with the aura of Martina's Patronus. It's working. Let's proceed with the plan. Shouted Axel, infusing his knife with light magic. Martina had truly done her job. The clothes they were wearing, made from the basilisk hide, are highly resistant to magic. That's the reason why their soul wasn't getting sucked out of their bodies right now. Without them, they'd already be dead since the pull is much stronger compared to a Dementor's. And the Patronus had prevented Demogorgon's presence from affecting their minds. Otherwise, most of its prey can't even muster the will to escape, let alone fight back. Annoyed by the Patronus, the creature screeched again as it extended its hand. A mass of dark magic came out of its hand heading for them. It was the Demogorgon's ability. It could harness dark energy. Akiko. Called out Axel. I've got it. Came her reply as she formed a few hand seals. Release. Dark shield. A shield formed in front of them, defending them from the corrosive darkness. The creature let out a shriek of frustration as it moved forward. Can't let it come closer. Shouted Axel, backing away along with Martina and Akiko. That was the main problem. The intensity of Demogorgon's spool on the soul increases with the distance. So, it's very risky to get near it. Release. Chains of Hell. Akiko cast another jutsu, and black chains emerged from the ground, wrapping up the creature. Now, Axel nodded as two kunai appeared in his hands. Trackless, light infusion, throwing, the kunai in his hands began to flow in with light magic, and Axel threw them out, sticking them straight into the creature's skull. Screech! The creature screeched in agony as it struggled hard, almost breaking off the chains of darkness. But Axel wasn't done yet. He kept throwing out the kunais, knives and swords, piercing the creature every time. Shing shing shing, the creature kept wailing with each attack, but for some reason, there wasn't enough damage. It kept struggling against the chains as the pull on their souls got stronger, causing them to back away. "I can't hold it for much longer," said Akiko through gritted teeth. "We have to hurry. If the others arrive before us, they'll die without the protection of the suit," said Martina, firing her own spells, none of which seemed to work. "Damn it. I'm so going to make an offensive Patronus spell if I get out of this alive," she exclaimed helplessly. The pull on their souls intensified, and the creature began to attack them with its dark magic, which Martina had to defend them against. Akiko could see where this was going. "It's too powerful. We should think of evacuation," she said with difficulty. There were barely any ways to deal with a Dementor. And an evolution of that thing. It's a total abomination. "I'm not done yet," shouted Axel. "Work, damn it," thought Axel, throwing the light magic infused weapons.bl.net. Axel didn't know what the problem was. Everyone had done their part, but he wasn't able to successfully play his part. "System, why isn't it working?" he asked, even though he already knew the answer. Arcane Thief is not a class that specializes in light magic. Your light infusion skill is not strong enough to counter the dark energy of a Demogorgon, if delivered in such low quantity. And albeit they are more corporeal than Dementors, Demogorgons still have enough intangibility to negate most of the physical and magical damage. Damn it. It was a familiar feeling, realizing that your magic just wasn't strong enough. One that he hadn't felt for a while after getting healed. But he had to accept it. When it came to the big leagues, his magic was still not strong enough, when compared to people like Martina, Akiko, or Dumbledore. He couldn't overpower these people purely in terms of magical combat. At least not yet. But, since when had he only relied on brute strength to get through? Actually, never. He was used to not being the most powerful in the room. But what he couldn't do with power, he had always more than made up for it with his other abilities. Closing his eyes for a moment, Axel went back to the time when his magic was extremely weak, making almost every spell impossible for him. Even at that time, he had managed to use his magic effectively. Repetition. That was the key. "Martina, can you lend me your staff?" he asked. Martina looked extremely regretful as she shook her head. "It's bound to me. No one else can use it." Sigh. Axel had expected as much. He took out his own wand. "I'm sorry for this," he thought, apologizing beforehand. The wand hummed in response, ready for anything. During this time, the degree of his bond with his wand had strengthened further, making the power out even better. Raising his wand, he activated his special skill. Light infusion. It's a skill that lets him infuse the light element into his spells or weapons. And right now, he was doing exactly that. Taking a deep breath, he began using the same spell that had been very useful during the time he was crippled. Electrica Impulsa, Electrica Impulsa, Electrica Impulsa. Within a few seconds, he had charged his wand dozens of times, generating an incredible amount of power. It had to be noted that this spell could already generate a lot of power back when he was crippled. And now, with the massive improvement he had gone through, the amount of magic stacked up was truly staggering. Crackle crackle asterisk, white lightning began to snake around his wand, all the way up to his hand. And Martina and Akiko had to distance themselves from him, the former due to the lightning discharge while the latter due to the incredible amount of light magic. Screech. The Demogorgon's struggles intensified. Only now, instead of coming closer to them, it was now trying to get as far away from Axel as possible. Drag it in front of the window, said Axel with difficulty. With the power he was holding on, massive destruction would be caused if he released it in the castle. Axel was currently in an incredible amount of pain. He had never felt like this before. It felt like could put everything into the spell. All right. Akiko tried her best, and Martina also helped, conjuring chains of her own to drag the struggling creature towards the window. Axel's jaw clenched due to the sheer amount of concentration that was needed to maintain the spell, even with his incredible mental power. Blood started to leak from his nose and his head was pounding. His wand's condition was no better, even showing tiny fissures along its surface. When it was finally right in front of the window, Axel was barely holding on. If you don't die from this, I'll kill you, he said, finally releasing the magic. Zap Bulmayen vote me with power stones. Give me tomorrow if you've already spent today's quota. Next chapter. New skill unlocked. Conclusion next. Quidditch. Beginning of revenge next. Quidditch 1 vs all. If you want to read ahead and support me, please join Patreon. Patreon.com/snollygoster. Chapter 79. Limit break. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boom. The creature couldn't even make a sound before it was utterly obliterated into nothingness, but the bolt still went on, out of the window, painting the night white for a few seconds. Three people looked at the scene blankly, dark spots dancing in front of their eyes due to the access brightness just now. The power of the spell was off the charts. There were a few reasons to explain that. First of all, Axel's magic was already very powerful after getting healed. Second, he had a high affinity with lightning, one which had only increased ever since he had started his ninjutsu training with Akiko. And third, he had charged the spell too many times. It's not something that even geniuses like Martina and Akiko can do, since it requires an insane amount of mental strength, something which was Axel's forte. These were some of the reasons why the spell was so destructive. But, even after that, Axel was still surprised by its might. That was too much power. At the time of casting, he had felt a peculiar feeling. It was like that he had an unlimited amount of magic, causing him to put in more power than he had predicted. And now, he felt completely drained. Axel collapsed to his knees, so did Akiko right afterwards. The fight had taken a lot out of both of them. Above 5 says, it was definitely above that, said Akiko while gasping for breath. Chains of Hell, a Een affinity forbidden jutsu which very few Een users can perform without dying. A spell that could easily hold down dragons. And she couldn't even hold down the creature for more than a few minutes with that spell. The Demogorgon turned out to be much more powerful than they had anticipated. Just a few moments ago, she had already given up on defeating it, instead considering how to stall it and evacuate everyone. Her thought process had even reached the idea of using the portal which the delegation came from to transport everyone at Hogwarts back to Japan. That's how hopeless the situation was. And then Axel suddenly decides to use some extremely powerful magic, one she had never seen before, to completely annihilate the creature. How? She wondered. Martina on the other hand wasn't so surprised by the fact that Axel had managed to save the day once again. She was more surprised by the magic he had just used. How? How in the ROB's name did you do that? She asked Axel, who was lying exhausted on the floor. The spell is only supposed to produce lightning and there's no way it could be charged that many times. Martina's eyes were shining with curiosity as she looked at Axel. Don't ask, said Axel distractedly. He had other things on his mind right now which were much more important than answering how he did it. He was currently looking down at his wand which had taken some damage due to the last spell. Thanks, and sorry, he said to the wand through his head. The wand gave out a weak thrum in response, making him regret even more. I'll get you fixed. He promised. Axel. Are you alright? Oh my god. You're bleeding from the nose, exclaimed Martina, bringing him out of his thoughts as she checked his condition. I'll live, said Axel with a nod, slowly getting up on shaky feet. But not my wand, he said, looking at the damaged cherub feather wand in his hand which had accompanied him through many difficulties. Oh, may I? Asked Martina, holding out her hand. Axel hesitantly put his wand in her hand. Thanks, she said, gingerly holding Axel's wand with both hands as she closely examined it, stroking it a few times. Careful, said Axel, a bit apprehensive. Don't worry, I know how to handle a wand. I've been doing this since I was a child, Martina said reassuringly. Meanwhile, Akiko. Do I have a dirty mind? Unaware, Martina continued her diagnosis. Let's see, there's critical damage to the wood, and a slight damage to the core as well, but it can be salvaged. Looks like the power output was too much for it. I can help you fix it, she said, giving it back to Axel. Axel raised an eyebrow. You can fix it. Wandlore was quite a complicated branch of magic. That much, even Axel knew. But she's Martina after all, so it shouldn't come out as much of a surprise. Before Martina could reply, Akiko got up. We need to get out of here. Martina nodded in agreement, but Axel had one more thing to do. Wait a sec. Traceless, activating the skill, he quickly removed traces of Akiko and Martina from the scene as well, only leaving the rest of the things undisturbed. Let Dumbledore and others do whatever they want with this. He had done his part, the rest, he minded his own business too much to bother. How did the creature get here? Who brought it? What were they playing at? There were a lot of questions in his head, but Axel's head was still throbbing due to the exertion earlier and he already had enough on his plate. Though, Martina and Akiko had even more questions. How did Axel know the castle was in danger? How did he know that it was a Demogorgon? How did he know exactly what a Demogorgon was? And, how did he do that magic? So, after they were safely out of the area, the two girls turned to look back at Axel to ask questions, but to no one's surprise, the mysterious boy was nowhere to be found, making Akiko click her tongue and Martina to stomp her foot. The only thing he left was a note tucked in each of their pockets which stated, "Thanks for the help. I owe you guys one." Martina crushed the note. This is so like him, she said in annoyance, and Akiko could only nod in agreement. Though, both the girls were smiling. After Axel had gotten rid of the girls, only then did he look at the system notifications he had received. New skill unlocked, congratulations. You have unlocked the skill. Limit break. You can temporarily break past your limits in order to overcome a desperate situation. Son.of. Axel exclaimed in surprise upon seeing the notification. Previously, he had been too concerned about his damaged wand to pay attention. So, a new skill. Axel sighed. Now he can understand how the spell was so powerful. And here he thought, he had finally became powerful. Limit break. This is a great skill for critical situations. But, it was also quite dangerous. It doesn't give him extra power. The power he is getting is at the expense of damaging his own body. He'll have to use it wisely. Axel checked the other notifications. Congratulations. You have completed the special mission. School in danger rewards. Special skill. Barrier. Limited information on Atlantis. Approval rate, another special skill. As explained, Arcane Thief is a great class, but it leaves a lot to be desired in terms of skill set. A single class can't have every skill after all. And special skills make up for that. Like now, he has got a barrier skill, something which the Arcane Thief class does not include. It'll definitely come in handy. But, Axel's main focus was on the information he had just gotten installed in his head, and as he laid there on the ground, the elation he had been feeling at completing the mission slowly vanished. Because the limited information he had gotten didn't contain good news. He carefully sifted through the information and his expression grew somber the more he read. Here's the gist of it. Atlantis is the oldest magical civilization, much, much older than any other. And as one would expect, it used to be very developed in terms of magical technology. But almost everything was destroyed due to internal warfare thousands of years ago, and Atlantis sank underwater. The remnants of the royal family who had won the war, restarted the civilization, having very little left of the previous glory. They decided to start anew and discarded almost all of the previous advanced magical technology, leaving only a few pieces of the advanced technology which are called relics. Now, after thousands of years, the opposing side has risen again, trying to take over, and the royal family is at its weakest right now. It would seem that the organization is going to take over Atlantis very soon. And when it does, it's going to start a war against the world using the relics. So, if Axel has to handle the organization, he has to do it soon, or he'll have another force trying to take over the world. Looks like there's no choice, he thought, slowly picking up his tired body. With his realizations over the past month, he had been having second thoughts about attracting the attention of the organization. Why not live in peace for a few more years? Why not train steadily, gather strength and then take it on? But, with this news, it would seem that he has no choice. He has to take down the organization quickly, or at least prevent it from taking over Atlantis. So, it would seem that he'll be going with his original plan, attracting its attention and drawing it out. Which means, he can go wild in tomorrow's match. It just so happens that he also had a few bones to pick with a certain pair of clowns who are now going to regret ever bothering him. Feeling quite drained, Axel went back to the Great Hall after changing to find a very anxious Daphne. Axel dragged her to a secluded corner where no one would bother them. Merlin's beard, you're bleeding. Are you all right? Asked Daphne, frantically checking for injuries. Axel checked his overexerted body. I'm fine, just tired. What happened? Why did you have to leave so suddenly? She asked anxiously, sitting right beside him. Axel shook his head. You need more clemency for that. But everything's fine now, he said, settling into the chair. Daphne couldn't help it, her eyes grew misty as she gripped his hand with both of hers. I was so scared. I've never seen you so serious before. Axel didn't shake her off. It was a really close call this time. They had almost lost it due to not being able to damage it. And with its high range, if the creature had reached anywhere near the Great Hall, it would have sucked hundreds of souls at once. And at that moment, Axel had thought of only one person in the Great Hall, which had helped him break past his limits. Thanks, he said looking at the mermaid in front of him, not really explaining everything. Daphne sighed, don't thank me. I couldn't help you make the most of your break. You didn't have that much fun, did you? Axel shook his head, no, he said truthfully. In the first place, he is not even the kind of person who would overly indulge in pleasure. But, his original purpose wasn't having fun, was it? It had been to find something to fight for once again. Something that'll drive him to not give up in a difficult situation and drive him to give it his all. A reason to work hard. And, at that moment, when he had foreseen the creature breaking out of the chains, he had felt it. He didn't know what it was yet, but it was there. And he intended to explore it. So, tonight wasn't meaningless. You did help me, he said, smiling at her. Just not in the way you wanted. The next day, Axel woke up in the morning feeling quite groggy and tired. His head was still aching from his fight with the Demogorgon. Is Halloween here cursed or something? He thought while groaning. Last year it was something else and this year it's a creature above XXXXX. Axel dragged himself out of bed. It was early morning and he had some training to do. The break was already over, and though he was interrupted, the main thing was Axel had actually felt annoyed at being interrupted, meaning it was definitely something he had enjoyed. Oh, there was a match today as well, right? he realized while doing his training. So, he warmed up some of his skills which would come in handy today. That was it for his preparations. After that, he leisurely made his way into the great hall, only to see a lot of eyes turning towards him. Patricia, the captain who looked to be on the verge of pulling her hair out, finally seemed to have hope return to her eyes as soon as she saw him. "Where have you been? I've been trying to find you since last night. You haven't picked up any of my calls, owls can't reach you, and I can't even find your room in the dorms," she asked in harsh whispers after dragging him aside. Axel rolled his eyes. "What is so urgent that you're trying to find me like a crazy stalker?" His Magi.mirror is always on silent mode, and of course she didn't find his room in the dorms. It's because he has removed his name from the door of his room there, so that no one notices his absence. "Urgent. We have a match in a few minutes. Is that not urgent enough for you?" "So what? I'm still on time. Now let me eat my breakfast," said Axel as he began to leave. "Breakfast? You still have time for breakfast?" Patricia followed him like an angry kitten. Axel ignored her. "Yeah, I need my energy, don't I?" Patricia once again almost pulled her hair out of frustration. "So overconfident. You're giving me anxiety," she said, her hands reaching for her pocket. Axel pushed past her, offering her a potion. "Here." Patricia checked her pocket where the potion was supposed to be moments ago. "Wait, when did you?" But Axel had already left behind. "Just trust me, Captain," said Axel as he went to sit beside Daphne. "What's the news?" Daphne looked furious. "Not good. I so want to kill those brothers right now." Photos and clips of the Seeker and the Captain getting splashed in Gryffindor colors were currently making rounds on the Magi.hive, and the Slytherin team was getting unceasingly trolled right now. Some might say that it was just paint, but it was not. 2 Slytherin representatives get painted into Gryffindor colors is extremely humiliating to the whole house, and it is a big deal. And the only reason it was just paint and not something more harmful like their other pranks was because the imps didn't want to get disqualified before the match. Other Slytherins are the witnesses of how vicious those 2 can really be. Axel nodded. The twins will get what's coming for them. Anything else? The twins were dead meat, Daphne already knew that. Don't get into trouble, that's what she was worried about. And also, my mom and sister are here. Come see them after the match if you can. Will do. Axel quickly ate his breakfast and got up, ready to kick some ass. Well, it'll finally come in the next chapter. Power Stones. Can you read ahead and support me? Patreon.com/snollygoster. Chapter 80. One versus All. The beginning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yep, it's here. In the stadium, Bellatrix and Andromeda Black appeared one after another in the VVIP room through the fireplace. They were here and not in the VIP box with the other Blacks who were supporting Rose because they wanted to see the match discreetly, without being seen by anyone. "It's been a while since I attended one of these," said Bellatrix nostalgically, looking down at the stadium. And as she removed the cloak, the reason for their discretion became visible. For today, the majestic Minister of Magic persona was gone, replaced by a girl in a black jeans, green silver.green tee.shirt that said, "Go Slytherin," and matching scarf, with the snake insignia on it. In her hands she held a tray containing a big bucket of popcorn and various drinks. Yep, as it can be seen, Bellatrix Black had come fully prepared for the occasion, not as the Minister of Magic, but a hardcore fangirl. She had worked non-stop in the past few days to clear her schedule for today, postponed everything so that nothing can disturb her today, brought popcorn, booked a private VIP room at the stadium, and even wore the Slytherin Quidditch merch that she had always thought was stupid. Why did she do all this? Certainly not because she liked watching Quidditch, at least not since her cousin Reggie stopped playing. Nor was it because she was a Slytherin supremacist. There's only one reason why she's like this. Because Axel was playing in today's match. And since it was his first match, she ought to come and support him, right? Where is he? When will it start? She muttered anxiously, looking down at the pitch with her omni-oculars. In a few minutes, said Andromeda, who had also taken the day off from her master healer shift. But Bella, don't expect him to play very well. He used to be permanently disabled not too long ago, said Andromeda, who couldn't share the same enthusiasm as her sister. It was good that Bella had been too busy to check up on the recent news about Hogwarts. If she had, she might have exploded due to rage. Andromeda was quite outraged herself at how harsh the students can be over a simple match. And more importantly, Axel had only recently suffered from severe trauma in all of his nerves. So, even after he's healed now, Merlin knows how, his motor skills might not be as sharp as they used to be. So, she was quite apprehensive about today's match, especially since it's against Rose. That girl won't pull back her punches. Bellatrix shook her head. No matter how he plays, I'll still support him, she said calmly, looking down at the stadium. It's not like there's no nepotism in Quidditch. I'll even make him a pro player if he wants to. Bellatrix casually said some crazy stuff and Andromeda was glad her sister hadn't seen the news yet. Meanwhile, in another VVIP private room, the Valentino family, Italy's biggest magical mafia family, was present. Did we bring everything? Asked Alessandro Valentino, Martina's father and Wizarding Italy's godfather. He was a handsome middle-aged man, with purple hair, blue eyes, and a scar on his forehead. Wearing the suit, hat and accessories like gold chain, watch and rings, he cut an intimidating figure, even though he was soft as a sponge with his family. Yes we did, said Francesca Valentino, Martina's mother with a slightly peeved look. But you and your son overdo things and it comes to her. Martina's mother had auburn hair, violet eyes, and a calm and collected temperament. Seeing her parents' looks, people will not be surprised by Martina's beauty. We do not, denied Alessandro in sync with his son, Enzo. Enzo's facial features matched Alessandro's. Only, his hair was auburn in color, matching his mother. He had piercings on his eyebrows and ears, and his curly hair was long and wild. At their blatant refusal, Francesca calmly handed out her rebuttal. She only asked for specific materials for her research. Not the delicacies of half the world. What? Alessandro shrugged, as if he didn't find anything wrong with it. Our daughter is growing. She needs good food that'll at least last a year. What if the food here doesn't suit her taste, right Enzo? Enzo nodded, besides, she's all skinny now. She's clearly not eating properly. Francesca didn't know why she even bothered. These two were a lost cause when it came to her daughter. At the moment, the door to the room opened, revealing Martina, who smiled as soon as she saw her parents. My Martini. Lil Tina. She was quickly hugged by her father and brother, making her smile wryly. Mom. After she was freed, Martina quickly hugged her mother. Being an orphan in her previous life, Martina genuinely cherished her family and thought of them as her real family, unlike some other reincarnators who are more connected to their previous lives' relations. How have you been? Asked Francesca, her stern eyes softening as she caressed Martina's hair. No matter how much she tried, she could not be her usual strict self with Martina. It helped a lot that Martina didn't need it. Same as always, Martina replied. Even though she was not. Especially not yesterday's incident with the scary Demogorgon. She couldn't sleep well last night. But, she couldn't tell them since that would mean her transfer from Hogwarts. Feeling safe and relieved, Martina hugged her mother a while longer. She then began her inquiries. How are you guys doing? Has there been any trouble? Are the businesses doing fine? There are no new grimoires, are there? Alessandro laughed. Everything is fine, boss, he said jokingly. Now, let us handle these things. You focus on enjoying life a little. Even though I don't like it, I've stopped fighting as well, added Enzo with a pout. That's great. Martina smiled. Mom, did you bring the things I asked for? She asked Francesca. Yes, everything is here. Though I still don't understand why you would need them. Just promise to be careful, said Alessandro. Yeah, I know, said Martina distractedly, checking the contents. At this moment, the noise from the commentary and the crowd sounded from outside, signifying that the match was about to start. Enzo frowned. Oh, I forgot to soundproof it, he said, taking out his wand. Martina stopped him. No, don't. I want to see the match today, she said as she looked out the stadium through the window. Enzo was confused for a moment, but then a shit-eating grin slowly stretched on his face. Since when have you taken an interest in Quidditch? It's not even Ravenclaw's match today. It's because. Martina paused as she stomped her feet. It's not what you think. She snapped. Oh, so it's not because of that boy playing? Asked her father. I heard it's quite a big match for him. It actually is. But how does that translate into him being my boyfriend? We never mentioned anything about him your boyfriend though, did we, Enzo? Asked Alessandro innocently. Not at all. I think we need to talk more with this guy. God, just kill me now, muttered Martina, burying her face into her hands. Axel headed down to the Slytherin lockers when it was time for the match. The atmosphere inside the Slytherin locker room decorated with silver and green was depressing, to say the least. Which wasn't a surprise, considering their situation. All the players on the previous Slytherin Quidditch team were Alaric Malcolm's lackeys, so on Alaric's orders, they wouldn't play for Patricia. As for any other player with decent enough skill to make it on the professional field, they stepped down since they didn't want to damage their track record. That's why, most of the players here were amateurs and they knew they were going to lose. So, when Axel, one of the major reasons for their current situation, came into the changing room, many glaring eyes were cast on him. Look who finally decided to show up, the one who's supposed to win us the game. Axel didn't pay attention to these people. They aren't even named characters for him yet, just people whose sole existence is to fill in the numbers of the team. There were 2 girls, the ones who behaved like Patricia's attendants all the time, and 3 guys, all of whom weren't looking particularly friendly with Axel. You're here, said Patricia, who had just emerged from behind the adjacent room. Here's your uniform. Quickly get changed. We don't have time, she said, handing him the Slytherin's Quidditch uniform. Axel checked it out. There was a silver-green jersey and matching robes for the upper body. There was no lower body uniform, so he didn't need to change the joggers he was wearing. Aside from this, there were leg guards, shin guards, fingerless gloves, and a helmet. Axel looked at the other 3 guys in the room. Since they only had to change the upper body clothes, they were changing into their uniforms in the locker room itself, but Axel still didn't want to change here if he could help it. Where do I change? He asked Patricia. Oh, the boys' changing rooms on that side, she replied. The guys exchanged glances and sniggered. What's the matter, Hunt? Too shy to change here. I think he might secretly be a girl, said the other one. Of course, the team members didn't have any good impression of him, so they weren't going to miss any chance of taking shots at him. Axel sighed. He had no problems changing in front of others. He was just being considerate here. But if they didn't want his kindness, then so be it. Amidst the sniggers, Axel casually took off the loose full-sleeve t-shirt he was wearing. Silence, and suddenly, everyone went quiet for a second. Jaws dropped, gasps were heard, and eyes went wide as they caught a glimpse of Axel's bare torso. Due to his relentless training and diet, Axel had the peak human male physique. He wasn't bulky, but he was absolutely ripped, with well-defined chest, shoulders, arms and sculpted abs. Each and every movement caused his muscles to visibly contract, making for a fascinating view. But, on that perfect body, light and faded scars from all kinds of injuries like cuts, gouges, lesions, and lacerations were spread randomly, displaying the struggles and damages the owner of the body had gone through. Though, before the onlookers could get a better view, Axel had already changed into his jersey, snapping the female audience out of their trance and drawing out sighs and awkward coughs from them as everyone went back to what they were doing. "Cough, everyone, it's time," said Patricia, her eyes lingering on Axel a few moments longer. It was no wonder her threat and intimidation were useless against him. If someone has gone through all that, what she did would appear nothing more than mere child's play to him. She wanted to ask a few questions to Axel, but she knew it would be no use. While the team made their way into the stadium, the commentator also began to speak. "Ladies, gentlemen, and Hogwarts students. The match that we have all been waiting for has finally arrived. Amidst the touching reunions of families, an extremely savage and vicious showdown is going to take place. The clashes between these teams have always been the talk of the school. Because it has more than 1,000 years of intense rivalry, Gryffindor versus Slytherin. Cheers. Today, this match is being displayed across 7 different magical communities, a big achievement for us. And as we can see from the crowd's response, everyone has been looking forward to this match. But this time, there's something more to this match than the usual rivalry. Those who are still in the dark, let us bring you up to speed with what's at stake today." The big screens that were installed on both sides of the stadium displayed a short clip in which the twins in clown costumes threw a ball at Axel and Patricia, painting them both in Gryffindor colors. Laughter erupted from the stadium, while all the Slytherins were offended. This is a clip of last night which is quickly going viral on the Magi.hive. The 2 identical clowns in the clip are the Weasley twins, infamous for their pranks. And their latest prank included painting the captain and the seeker of the Slytherin team into gold and scarlet, the color which signifies the Gryffindor house, which is a great humiliation to many a Slytherin. And through the match today, the Slytherin team is supposed to take its revenge today. Meanwhile, standing opposite Axel in the middle of the pitch, Rose looked between a mixture of amused and guilty. "I tried to stop them, don't blame me for this," she offered to Axel. She didn't know why, but she had had a bad premonition as soon as the Weasley twins had come up with the idea. She had tried to stop them, but of course, since when had the twins listened to anyone? Facing the humiliation from the crowd and the gloating looks of the twins, Axel remained unmoved. "You should have tried harder. Don't blame me for what I'm going to do next," he replied calmly, making Rose's bad premonition come back in full force. The commentator wasn't done yet, as another clip was shown on the screen next, of Rose and Axel facing each other. And this is a clip of the challenge between seekers of the teams. The new Slytherin seeker, Axel Hunt, has challenged the Gryffindor seeker Rose Potter, the girl who lived herself. The Gryffindor seeker has been reported to be the best and the youngest seeker at Hogwarts, winning Gryffindor the Quidditch Cup and House Trophy in her very first year here. There are talks of her getting offers to play in the major leagues already, which is definitely going to be an unheard of feat, and such a seeker has been challenged by the underdog Axel Hunt. The word is, the losing party will have to do anything the winner asks. So, are you excited to see the outcome? Yeah. Axel frowned. The commentator has been in favor of Gryffindor from the beginning, and passive-aggressive towards the Slytherin. Like right now, he is all but stating that Axel is a reckless idiot, while trying to stay neutral to not get into trouble for it since the match is being broadcast internationally. But then again, the commentator, Lee Jordan, was a Gryffindor and bosom pals with the twins, so it shouldn't be a surprise. Alright then, so let's begin this very exciting match, brought to you by Big Owl, your shopping made easier, and Grapes, premium Magi.mirrors and other Magitronics. Facing each other, both the teams were handed standard broomsticks, to ensure fair competition. If the players are allowed any broom, the richer side always has the unfair advantage. And to stop this, the school provides the teams with standard identical broomsticks with the same specs, checked by Madame Hooch herself. As already mentioned, Hogwarts was rolling in money. Just the promotions of those two brands had raked in enough money to fund the entire school for a year or two, let alone providing students with brooms. "I want a clean and fair match," said Madame Hooch as she blew the whistle, starting the much-awaited match. Jordan began again, and the match has started, with both the teams kicking off the ground, taking positions. Madame Hooch is going to release the balls any moment now. One thing to be noted in today's match is that it is a debut match for most of the players in the Slytherin team. Yeah, Captain Patricia Afonso had this brilliant idea of making a team out of a bunch of inexperienced newbies for this important match, surprising us all. "Let's see if her strategy works," said Lee, once again passively dissing the Slytherin team. Madame Hooch released the ball, starting the match. And the balls have been released, and Gryffindor is immediately in possession, the quaffle in Angelina's hands. Captain Patricia tries to intercept but blocked by the twins. Good strategy. The rest of the Slytherin team are almost all amateurs anyway. Angelina to Katie, Slytherin player trying to defend, but in vain. Katie to Alicia spin net, Alicia takes a shot, and score. Gryffindor has scored one of the most one-sided goals in Hogwarts history. I was reserved in my judgment earlier, but it is clear now, the Slytherin team is really weak. This Tim, wait, Lee Jordan suddenly paused in mid-commentary in surprise. The Slytherin seeker is waving his hand in the air. When did he even get there? Wait. Is that what I think it is in his hand? Sure enough, high above in the air, looking down at everyone, with the sun's glare falling from behind him, Axel sat casually on his broomstick, his hand held high. And clutched in his hand, was a shiny struggling golden ball with wings attached to it. "In your assholes, doubtful people," he muttered, waving the golden snitch, surprising everyone. He was not being overconfident when he said he would win easily. And he is not being overconfident when he is saying, this is just the beginning. The series of events from yesterday night till now have left him more than a bit annoyed. And since he has free rein to go wild today, he is going to take this chance with open arms. "So begins the ass-kicking," he said, releasing the snitch. "An. Let it begin. Come here, you know you can't wait. Patreon.com/snollygoster. Come support me guys. Vote with Power Stones.